Word Balloon is brought to you by the League of Word Balloon Listeners.
Woo!
Hey, everybody, welcome back. It's Word Balloon, the comic book conversation show. John Suntress here. I am sensing a lot of comic pop fans, Sal Crivelli, because I'm thrilled. I'm glad that obviously there's nothing else to watch on television. I don't even know what the Sunday Night Football game is right now.
Yeah, me either.
Well, good to see you, man.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And I wanted to get a lot of funny comments. We already got to start off, man. Good half a dozen comments from people. Look at this, man. Hi, Sal. Very nice, Patrick.
Hello.
Nick Grimes. Very nice. I like it. And Jozilla. Very funny. Yeah, we're in Yes, it is Squaresville. I am the mayor of Simpleton, as XTC once sang back in the 90s. Yes, indeed. So, yeah, this is great. Dude, guys, everybody's really nice and then saying lovely things. So thank you.
That's very nice.
And thank you for joining us. Sal, I wanted you on because you're helping us a lot put on Baltimore Comic-Con this coming weekend. And I'm really excited for it. I'm really glad. And thank you very much for you and Comic Pocket and the like for helping us out and helping us broadcast the fun that we're going to have on a lot of these panels.
It's absolutely my pleasure, man. I've been a big advocate of Baltimore Comic-Con for over a decade, and I, of course, am a fan of your show, and I'm thrilled to be here. It's been a rare privilege to be able to actually work with. It's not just hey, I'm on Word Balloon, which is, by the way, didn't think I'd get here, but also, hey, I get to work with you, man. We've done conferences. It's been fantastic.
No, likewise, man. No, seriously, I love what you guys do at Comic Pop, and it's really great to have you on. And yeah, no, thank you. It's one big happy family, man. And I love that we all can attack interviews or subjects and have different points of view. And I think that's we're replacing what normally happens in the comic shops, and will again. I mean, it's kind of hard right now. You need a bullhorn to do it right now with social distancing, but
true.
I really like action right now. Really, I think it sucks.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I don't know about your store, but mine has to have limited capacity. So you can't really have a good conversation anyway. There's only 4 or 5 of you in there at a time.
Right. And no, you're 100% right, man. And it's it's rough. Now, what town are you in specifically?
Specifically, I operate out of the Denville area in northern New Jersey.
Okay.
But my local shop is actually interesting because, well, it's not interesting, but I'll tell you anyway. It's in Wayne. It's at Zap Comics, which has 2 locations in Manalapan and Wayne. I really like that store, and that's kind of like my local shop, so to speak. Although One is not rivaling, but it's a fantastic experience, and I only mention it because Anthony Marquez bought it a couple of years ago. It was Dewey's Comic City, which was in Madison, New Jersey, but moved into the Joe Kubert School for Graphic Arts.
So it's in the actual school?
It is in the art store where they used to sell, well, they still sell art supplies because Marquez bought the Joe Kubert School as well.
Oh, wow.
So he consolidated both businesses, which is a genius move.
So how, man, I haven't talked to anyone from the school in years.
Yeah.
So, is Mike still there? And I forget Mike's last name, but Mike was like one of the administrators over there. And I don't know if the brothers are still teaching over there, or
I think Andy
Adam
still
and Andy.
is.
Okay.
Well, at least it's more like obviously almost everyone is video conferencing their classes.
Well, certainly right now. Yeah.
I know that both Andy and Adam have some direct connection with the school still.
Good.
And will forever. It's their dad's school.
Well, no, you never know. And I mean, again, I'm sure that the guy bought, and again, his name that just bought it.
Yeah, I think I remember. I don't think Mike's there anymore. I don't know though. I couldn't.
No, but I'm asking who. What's the name of the guy who bought this school again?
Oh, Anthony Marquez.
Anthony Marquez,
DC artist and incredible guy.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. I would imagine they would still have, and Marquez would still have pros teaching at the school.
And they do.
You never know. Since I thought Andy and Adam were running the school for a while since Joe passed away.
Yeah.
But yeah,
not so much anymore. But
I understand.
But they are affiliated. They didn't let it slip away.
No, that's cool. That's awesome, man.
Yeah,
very, very cool. That's amazing, and that's funny that they have a store in the art store. That's fantastic.
It's great. Yeah, and
cool.
They're one of the few that isn't like pissed at DC. So they're just they have all the they have the stuff. Although they do an interesting thing where a lot. I don't know if your shop does it, but
what's that?
Does your shop put the DC books out on Tuesdays, or they just go, y'all wait until Wednesday like everybody else?
It's funny. I have not been to the store on a Tuesday to check that out. That's interesting. And yeah, that's a very interesting point. Yeah. Wow.
Dewey's does they have them in a pile behind the register on Tuesdays. So if you want something, you ask for it. And if you don't get it, it goes on the shelf on Wednesday.
That's interesting. That's really crazy.
It's not a bad system.
It really wouldn't hurt Diamond to switch to Tuesday, given that every other media is released on Tuesdays.
That's true. Video games and everything, yeah.
And even regular novels. I mean, I talked to Meltzer last week, and he's like, "Can you hold it till Tuesday?" And I'm like, "Yeah, of course," because that's when his new kids' books were out. So yeah, it's crazy, man. Boy, a lot of people are really enjoying the idea that we're doing this crossover. First of all,
it is.
Yeah, Greg points out Game 7 of the Dodgers and I forget who else are playing tonight. The Braves, excuse me. See, I knew. I gotta prove my. It's funny, we're talking about sports, and I was telling Sal, I'm like, I don't really follow day to day anymore, but I did remember seeing that.
Good.
Paul, fancy seeing you here. Thank you for joining us, and Ben, thank you.
Same.
And Ivytown, maybe Ivytown. That's very possible. I'm a big Ray Palmer fan. It could very well be Ivytown that we're having this town hall meeting in. I'm here because of Sal. I don't know Town Hall. Well, I don't either. It's actually just the name of the episode. But thanks for playing Batman Who Points. Absolutely, man. It's called Word Balloon, buddy. That's the channel.
Yes, check it out.
That's all right. When from meeting Sal at Baltimore Comic-Con to watching them deal with the pandemic. So badass. Did you only start for the pandemic, dude, as far as doing video, or have you?
That's what I was
gonna say. I thought you've been doing it for years. Yeah.
No, I think it's just the fact that we're talking here, we're working on Baltimore online, and we're trying to help not only the convention but also people get their convention fix.
Yeah,
man, I gotta tell you, I'm going through some serious withdrawal.
I hear you, man.
New York was a little bit of a fizzle. I don't know about you.
Yeah, well, again, I say this as someone who's helping to put together Baltimore, like yourself. I love these online things. It's not the same. Of course, it's not the same.
No,
I always, and especially, do you do a lot of traveling to conventions? Do you go to other cities?
I do, not a lot, but I do enough. Enough to warrant a budget and to actually it's on my taxes. So I guess I do.
I hear you, buddy. No, absolutely. Yeah, me too. I try to go out of town to at least 2 or 3 a year. Yeah. And then fortunate enough being in Chicago, having a couple shows here.
Seriously, I've been meaning to go to that one. C2E2 is the one.
Yeah.
I remember when they announced it, and I was like, oh, man, I'm no one's gonna pay me to go to Chicago.
I hear you, man. It's a great Artist Alley show.
Yeah.
I mean, they always come through with great panels as well. Yeah. But it really is. Even I would say, well, I have to say New York has certainly upped its Artist Alley game, but I really do think Chicago always had it. Even back when Wizard World was the big thing. Wizard World still exists. Obviously, it's changed. It's become more of a media show. There is a comic presence there. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's unfortunately, I don't think it's at the top of the list anymore for Wizard shows. Not on mine.
It's drifted from when Wizard World used to acquire local shows and just kind of put their logo on it, like Philly, for example. Wizard World Philly really kind of put a dent in the Philadelphia Comic-Con spectrum. And so it kind of, I went to PhillyCon or Wizard World Philly, I think like 2016 or 14. I don't remember which year it was, but that was the last time. Like I went because I was invited by another outfit that's online, and I was like, I want to work with them too. I did that, and then I drove home. Like we did the show. We walked the floor. It took maybe 20 minutes.
Wow.
There's everyone. Goodbye.
Yeah. No, I understand some Wizard Chicago's of late. I'll check the guest list and half the time not even go to the show and just be like, all right, I'll meet you at the Hyatt on the after hours, or we'll have dinner, couple creators. But yeah, I mean, no, it's like, I don't necessarily have to go. And it was always, it does, because especially when I was starting to go to conventions regularly about 20 years ago, I mean, I there were never enough. And now I don't think it's that I'm jaded. I think I am just getting old. And sometimes after San Diego, you're like, all right, okay, especially if it's late July. And then immediately, like, you have August in Chicago, it's like, I could use a couple more weeks of a break. I haven't gone to an Ace show yet. Have you gone to an Ace show yet?
I have not. I don't think so, because I've not been into an Ace show. I was mixing up Ace with the Awesome Con, which I know is in DC and also in another location.
Yep.
I've not been to an Ace show. I've only been to Reed shows, Wizard shows, and like self-owned local shows. Like the East Coast Comic-Con, for example, which is over in Urban, New Jersey. I can't remember the name. But
no, I'm hip.
I really like that show. But
I was just talking to Anthony Snyder on Word Balloon, and I'm going to put out the audio tomorrow. I would have put it out today. I was telling Sal off the air, I was just wiped today. I have no idea why. I hit the wall, and so I slept all day.
I fell asleep last night at 4 a.m. and got up today.
We should have called each other, Sal. I was looking.
We could have gotten 2 episodes out of that.
Exactly. I was looking for a friend at 3 a.m. last night.
Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that's so funny. But yeah. But Anthony was telling me about a lot of local Jersey shows that were happening recently, and he was doing great at them. He said, and it's again, they're small enough that you can do social distancing, and interesting. So, and truly, I have a bad feeling that, that's kind of going to be the status quo for conventions for the next several months, obviously.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I'm not going to a convention until I've got a vaccine. I'm just,
right.
That's where I am. And it just, it sucks.
No, I hear you, man. No, or stepping on a plane. And again, that's what
thing.
I mean, I've been lucky. I've gone to so many San Diegos in the last 15 years since starting Word Balloon. And I always refer to it as really expensive summer camp, because it's like all my out-of-town friends, we're all together for a week, great weather. It's never bad weather. No. And it's, just beautiful out there. You're right on the ocean. And it's just like, okay, cool. And, but again, it's really expensive.
So that was San Diego has been, it's one of my comic book mecca locations. There's a couple as we grew up as comic book people. There are a few places where you're like, when you're a kid and you don't know, or you don't, you only know the books in your hands and the ads between the pages. You only know, like, I'm never going to go to Mile High Comics, right? I'm never going to get into that warehouse and see the world's biggest. And I checked that box because I have a colleague who lives
that's great.
In the Denver area. So I went and I skipped I went to the con. There's a van they have where they shove everyone in this van.
They shuttle back and forth from the convention to Mile High. Oh, that's really smart.
Yeah. Wow. Free van. But I got to go. I'm like, I'm here. I got to see it. But San Diego's one of those white whales, man. And because I'm an East Coast boy, and because New York became prevalent over the last 10 years,
Sure.
I've been able to get away with not going. I've been able to go, that sounds awesome. They're going to do the exact same thing over here.
For the most part, obviously, with movies and movies and TV, it being in the backyard, only 2 hours away.
Yeah.
So there is that level of convenience and interesting things. I mean, like, do you remember the Cinemax show Strike Back?
That sounds familiar, but I didn't get cable till like after high school.
Oh, okay, good for you, man. No, you don't need it.
I lived in the woods,
whatever.
so it was just not feasible.
Strike Back was this great kind of paramilitary show. It was shot in South Africa. It dealt with international terrorism. Really interesting show. And they would have a San Diego panel every year. Oh. And it wasn't, so it wasn't Buffy. It wasn't Twilight. It wasn't one of the massive Hall H shows, but it was always in like a nice sized ballroom. And because it was kind of a cult show, it didn't have a lot of attendance. So I would go every year, and it was great. And I'd take photos of the cast, and it was really cool. And that's what I love. And also the other great thing about San Diego, and I suppose this is true to a degree with New York, and I've been to almost all 10 years of its existence, or 15 years of its existence, back to 2006. With San Diego, it's so spread out in a good way that literally you could see groups of people having completely different experiences at the same convention. The manga people are having a hell of a time. The anime people are having a great time. The other thing is, if you don't go to San Diego, you might get jaded based by the media coverage and go, well, it's not about comics anymore. Totally. And that's like, it's a crack. It's a crack because, and you could really get like cool, nerdy only panels, a bunch of academic panels about pro-American propaganda comics in Japan, in post-war Japan. Sign me up. I'm there. I mean, seriously, I'm like, sounds great. I got an hour for that. Right. Or I remember Arnold Drake interviewing Jose Luis Garcia Lopez in one of the last shows that Arnold Drake was at. I mean, that's a great thing. So yeah, really, let's celebrate the 100th anniversary of Tarzan. Okay, sure, okay. But yeah, that's what I love about San Diego. And I do think New York, partially because the Javits Center is limited in its space. And after they merged it with the anime show. A big mistake. Oh, yeah. I get it from an attendance standpoint, but it's like, you're not doing us any favors, man, because we could have a hell of a lot more panels.
To do is let's cram another convention in here. Like, and they got the expansion going. They're not going to be done till 2032. Like, they say,
is it that far?
No, they say it's going to be done by next year. But anytime it's a New York project,
oh hell yeah, man!
You add another 5-10 years to that.
Absolutely,
there's no way.
I know, and it's a shame because they had that North Wing set up for Artist Alley.
Yes.
And it was such a great little oasis. I mean, you had to literally go through the sea of people to get to it. Yeah. But then it was just like, it's nice. It's a nice bright room. Yes. It was its own thing. You could just hang out there if you wanted to. And
for 2 years, they did a really cool thing where they only opened that wing. They called it Special Edition NYC. Did you ever go to that Special Edition?
No, but Nagin, Mike Nagin's a buddy, and of course Franco from Tiny Titans. Of course. And they would tell me all about it and stuff and how nice that was. Go on. It
was great. It was like the Artist Alley. It was exactly like New York Comic-Con, just Artist Alley, and no massive wall of people trying to get through. Like, just exclusive access to some of the like top creators in the field. No BS merchants. It was just a really positive experience. I was like I was really hyped for it because I just kind of assumed these things were just like you're just going to happen, and then the second year, gone, over. And no conversation. Wasn't like, yeah, it's really too bad. Not a lot of attention. Just like, what Special Edition NYC? I'm like, I have 2 videos of that show, so I can prove to you I went to it.
No, everyone I know that enjoyed it. I guess they didn't get enough people. I don't know.
I assume based on how little attention you get focused on Artist Alley from like the big ones, like San Diego. One of the things I don't hear about is like who's going to be there in terms of artists and writers.
I mean, Sal, the tables have they continue to shrink in Artist Alley. They're not even 4 feet long. Ugh. And yeah, I mean, really, I appreciate the artists that still exhibit in Artist Alley, and also it's like you better be there every year, or you will absolutely lose that space. And it's crazy.
Yeah.
So, and now, God, another thing about San Diego that was unfortunate in the last couple of years, DC pulled back, or I should say, Warner pulled back, and now it's AT&T.
Yeah.
And now DC stuff is all absorbed in the Warner area, the TV and film area. And it's like, they've always got stuff going on, but it's just generic Warner now. And it's not, and DC's just part of it. And that's a shame, because just like at New York for years, the big giant live DC area was always just happening and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And now it does still happen in New York, ironically.
Right.
But what do you do?
I do love Baltimore, though. Getting back to this whole thing, like, Baltimore is like just a full convention floor sized artist alley. And it's just from the people to the people you should, all the way to the end, and just peppered in with merchants that are all looking for great deals. Like that convention sprung right the heck up on me. Like when I used to go to school down in Virginia, so I was very familiar with the Baltimore, DC, Richmond area, and so I wanted to visit a friend of mine in Virginia. Drove down to Baltimore because it's the halfway point between my college and home. And popped in. I was like, this is really cool. And it wasn't. And back then, I was younger. I was happy to drive. I was like 3.5 hours. So we're talking 7 hours driving time. Forget it. I could do that It's a day trip for me. Year 2, I'm like, so what are hotel rooms like? What's the prices here? Because there's no way I'm going to do this again.
Yeah. No, Baltimore's a great show, and
I'm shocked we haven't bumped into each other.
We probably did. I was really happy helping program and come up with the panels, because what I love about Baltimore in particular are those creator-to-creator panels.
Yes.
Like, I really think that's a hallmark of Baltimore. And truly, that was our intent with a lot of the programming that we're doing this weekend.
Yeah.
For everyone, I'll make a chyron to put at the bottom, but go to BaltimoreComicConLive.com if you haven't already for the full schedule.
Yeah.
And I'm going to take you through some of the good stuff. Like Friday night, we're going to start with an AWA comics panel with Axel Alonso and a bunch of his creators. But then at 6, it's going to be Justice League Bwahaha. So that's DeMatteis, Keith Giffen, and Kevin McGuire all together again. I can't wait. It's going to be great. I've had the pleasure of talking to all of them, and to get them together and hear about the great years of the funniest superhero team that really started things. I mean, we got Next Wave and other great comedy groups as well over the years, but it all started with Justice League, in my opinion.
Without that, you don't get New Avengers. You don't get you don't get the character interaction focused of team books, right? Yeah. Usually, because you go back to any of the old Avengers books, the old particularly Justice League books, way before the Trinity. I'm talking Giffen, DeMatteis, McGuire, but before that, it's just the team being we have to get together. There's a problem. Let's solve it. It's not about the interplay. It's not about the characters. People, and it's easy to discredit or discount characters that you would normally do superficially. Blue Beetle, Booster Gold, who cares? I mean, superficially, sure. Read about them, see their interactions. You might care about Fire and be sad that she was kind of marginalized in the 90s. You might get why Ice gives Guy such a pass in his life. There's a lot in there that you don't get without that team.
That's very funny.
I think the first time I ever met any of them was at a Baltimore Comic-Con. And it's one of those things where literally, and I can't understate Baltimore Comic-Con enough, not because it's not like we're paying, I'm not being paid for this, but I love going to Baltimore Comic-Con because when you go, I remember I brought my then girlfriend, now wife, and we're walking down this hall, and I just looked down and Mark Wade's sitting there, and I assume I cut a line, no line. And I'm like, oh, crap. This is Mark Waid. He wrote Kingdom Come. And he's like, that's correct. I did write Kingdom. He's that close where it's it becomes a conversation. And that kind of access is just across the board. And it's been replicated somehow. It's not like New York Comic-Con. I remember I had a similar experience with Peter David at New York Comic-Con when they had the artist alley up on this weird upstairs plateau. And I'm just on top of these creators. I'm like, wow, Peter David, I've never met you. What's going on? Then in subsequent years, they're like, let's move them further and further away from the general populace. Let's cram them elsewhere. Let's make it so that if you want to get to them, you have to go through a torrent of human bodies. It's just, if you are claustrophobic or if you have like a problem with crowds, New York, you're going to need to bring like some kind of special force field suit or something to protect yourself, because it'll make you freak out. I know a lot of people have had panic attacks at New York Comic-Con.
That's hilarious.
But Baltimore, not so much. Just a really, really, like, it's easily replicatable. Bendis, same deal. First time I met Bendis, sitting right there, had a stack of books from someone else. And he's like, I'm going to sign these while I talk to people who care about me being here. And he's just, it's amazing. It was an amazing every year memory.
No, you're 100% right, man. No, and it's maintained the old-fashioned con vibe while these other big shows keep getting bigger. And as you say, push us further away from the creators and stuff. And that is the great thing about Baltimore. So now you mentioned real fast, I want to promote a couple more of the panels.
Please, yeah.
7:00 Friday Eastern time, Bendis and Jerry Conway one-on-one. And then 8:00 Eastern time, Dean Haspiel. We're calling it In the Studio 1985. And it's Dean Haspiel. He was an assistant at the same time to Dennis Cowan, Bill Sienkiewicz, Howard Chaykin, and Walter Simonson.
Wow.
Yeah. And and it's going to be him just, hey, guys, do you remember X? Do you remember Y? And especially 1985, a really great year for all four of them.
Yeah.
And, Walt's in the middle of Thor, and Howard's doing American Flag, and Dennis is doing The Question with O'Neill and everything.
Yeah.
And Sienkiewicz, Elektra Assassin, and all the Daredevil stuff, everything he was doing at the time.
Yep.
Or no,
New Mutants.
Yeah, but wait a minute. Did I screw up? Was it? Yeah, Sienkiewicz is one of the guys. Yeah. Okay.
Oh, is he part of it? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, no, you'll forgive me. Exactly. I'm still wiped. I mean, I'm like, my man, you're energizing me today. So I need this conversation.
Like, this whole thing, and you've been coordinating with all these people. Like, no joke. In any email about this, John's somewhere in there being like, "Sounds good, guys." Like, just making sure it all happens. And so I could totally get that level of discombobulation. But I'm glad it's all still there, and it's all in black and white. Like, it's all pretty much go right. Like, we're all we're all set.
Oh yeah, no. I've been emailing all the creators, reminding them of their days and times for their panels, and they're like, "Yep, no problem. I'll be there. It's gonna be great." Oh yeah, great, and it's like fantastic. So Kyle, look at this nice comment. Comic Pop and Word Balloon crossover, biggest crossover since Amalgam. Keep up the good work, guys. Go Braves! Yes, indeed. Game 7. This is what we were talking about. Yeah. Really wanted to be able to get to see C2E2 next year. I don't think it's going to be remotely safe enough. I am hearing, and I have not heard it officially, but little birds are telling me that they are pushing the date for C2E2 well into the fourth quarter, as opposed to April or end of March, as it's been the last few years. So I have no, until I get something official, that's all I'll say.
That's a good way to kill, to keep it, because April or March, I think that's a little too soon, a little too close.
Well, and a lot of times too, they gotta so that they don't get a financial hit. A lot of those, a lot of the sponsorship in the conventions are hard deals.
Yeah,
and they can't
change them. Like,
well, they can't get a refund. Well, they can't get a refund unless they've got insurance, and it's the pandemic covers that insurance. Or that the pandemic is one of the things where their insurance can kick in. So, I mean, really, these conventions are bleeding money.
Yeah.
And it really sucks that way. So they don't want to cancel until they absolutely know they can, and that the state will declare a state of emergency. Therefore, they can't hold a big event. So those are the kinds of things that need to happen for them to not lose literally hundreds of thousands, if not more. So and then again, that's how big these shows have gotten, to their benefit and to our benefit and to our detriment. I think, Sal, because I miss the old-fashioned shows, and I like homemade shows and comic art festivals as opposed to comic cons, CAFs that are more art-centric.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I never even went. I didn't, like, my parents are very, very careful to make sure that I never knew about comic conventions until well past my interest, because I loved comics. I hit like adolescence. I'm like, I'm out. I stayed out for like a good chunk of time, high school into college.
Sure.
College, dipped my toe back into it, and then of course fell hard for a lot of different like really like big game changers in the industry, and from there moved on into this, and like but by then, like literally New York Comic Con was created right when I was getting back into comics, and I was like, oh great, I'll go. And that was a quagmire, but one that I like loved and wanted to experience over and over again. Like New York Comic Con first year, nightmare in organization.
I remember
crowds.
The fire marshal shut it down, shut the room down.
That's right.
And we had to wait in line. And when 10 people left, then they'd let 10 people back in and stuff. It was, and especially if you were stuck inside, you didn't want to leave. And then it became Convention of the Damned. Yes. Because it was it was a big room, but it was still only a room. And you were circling the same room. And that's really when I bonded with Bendis and David Mack and Mike Oming. I mean, I already knew Bendis a little. And he's like, aren't you tired of like walking in a circle? I'm like, a little. He's like, hey, sit down with us. And I spent like hours with them. And it was like, all right, now we're all friends. This is fantastic. And we have been ever since. So that was great.
That's dope.
So, hey, Comics Misexplained. All us guys at Comic Core. Hello, Comic Core gentlemen.
Hey.
And a good picture. Is that Jason? I think that's Jason. That they got to interview Sal at Baltimore Comic-Con, and Mark Waid started friendship with the Hero Initiative. And then, of course, started Mainframe Comic-Con. Now it's come full circle. Exactly. True. Now we are the show. That's right. I'm kidding. No, the guys, seriously, I always get, I was telling Chad yesterday and Chuck and all the Mainframe guys, I was incredibly appreciative that they asked me to join.
Yeah.
And I'm glad to be part of it. And I really think we're putting on some fun shows. So
definitely.
Here, I'm gonna finish Friday real fast. So then the drink and draw is happening. And we've got an incredible group of artists from Becky Cloonan and Ryan Stegman to Terry, Stranger in Paradise, Terry
Moore?
Yes, Terry Moore, thank you. And Dan Brereton, so many top artists. And the people that got tickets are going to get some incredible sketches. But we're going to show that live, and everyone can watch these artists in action. And then at 11 Eastern, my dear friend Pat Schumacher, the showrunner of the Harley Quinn animated series, will join me for a discussion with fans about Harley Quinn. Now it's renewed for season 3. So that's going to be great. I'll talk more about the show later. But here, let's see some other great comments here.
Sure.
I got to work this weekend. Will panels be available later to view? Absolutely, they will. Yes, indeed. We'll be doing them live through StreamYard, the same technology we're using right now. But then once they're done, they'll be posted as YouTubes, both at BaltimoreComicConLive.com and also at Mainframe Comic-Con's YouTube channel, at my channel, at Sal's channel as well. Will it be Comic Pop, Sal? Will it be that channel? Which channel?
I think it will be here. Yeah, I think that's the plan. Unless I'm told otherwise, I think that's the plan.
So we're going to have blocks of days, and with time cues, and you'll be able to, fast forward and get to the panel you want or watch the whole thing. Yep. I will also be chopping them up as Word Balloon episodes for the Word Balloon channel, both video and audio. Good so idea. Yes, don't worry. You will absolutely be able to do that.
Yep.
Request to invite Art and Franco for the kids comic panel next time. Also need Ordway on a panel, please. Yeah, we had Jerry do Mainframe back in August, and he was on that 50 Years of Superman panel. And and some of the creators that I'm friends with, I'm like, all right, you did the last show. We'll give you a break. We'll bug you next year because I'm sure we'll have more Mainframe programming in next year. That was like, I felt that way about like Fraction and Kelly Sue. I'm like, you guys were just on. I'm like, you hung out for 4 hours. I'm like, take a break, take a walk. Same thing with Rucka, another guy like that. Oh yeah, Rachel Rising from Terry Moore's Aces. Absolutely.
Agreed.
Terry will have a solo panel on Saturday, and Amy Dallin, the fine host, will be talking to him on at 2 p.m. Eastern. So yeah, if I see a creator mention, and somebody else said that Chaikin doesn't get enough love, well, Chaikin is part of that 1985 panel. He did do Mainframe last August as well. And yeah, don't worry, we'll never Howard. Anytime Howard wants to be part of this, Howard is always welcome. We love Howard Chaikin. You don't have to worry.
Yeah.
So, have you had the pleasure? Have you met Howard?
I have. I just met him. I mean, but it's, since I'm treating 2020 like the gap year, I think that's what I'm going to start calling it from now on. Oh, remember the gap year? Like, yeah, try not to. Between the gap year, Howard Chaikin was at East Coast Comic-Con, And I didn't see him on the programming list. So like I passed his table, no one's there, no line. And so I'm like, crap, I have nothing for him to sign. He has nothing at his table. He's just like, I'm Howard Chaykin. So I run back, I grab an oversized, like one of those hardcover editions of the Wolverine, Nick Fury, the Scorpion Protocol books. And I pick that up and I have him sign it and he draws me a little thing. I'm like, wow, like what did it cost me nothing. Totally awesome. Told a couple stories. It was an incredible experience. That's the experience of cons that like I have been missing for as long as I can remember. Like it's unbelievable. And I'm so fortunate that we have shows like these to replicate the experiences you remember. Because that's the thing. Like if all you have is San Diego, New York, C2E2, you might be like tempted to skip them. Because I know a lot of people who went to several shows and went, oh, so-and-so was there. I missed that. Or I didn't even know there was that wing. Like there are a lot of people who go to New York Comic-Con didn't even know Artist Alley even was a thing, much less that it's so big. Like it's an entire massive hall. You could get lost doing just that. So yeah, those are the moments I really treasure. Were like those interactions, those back and forths.
Jape wants to know if Comic-Cons will ever be the same again after what went on this year. I
want to know that. Yeah,
I think so. I mean, and I realize that it might take 2 years from now before we're back to that. Whenever, like you said, man, when there's a vaccine, I do think things will be a bit more normal. I mean, I don't know to what extent, but no, people like live events. People miss concerts. They miss stand-up. They miss going to plays. The live entertainment, and really, as I'm sure you've been watching, Sal, the pop-up live entertainment thing was really just getting started in the last couple of years.
Yes,
and now that's at a standstill because of what's happened. Yeah. So it's I really think it's an interesting, excitement generating idea that was, like I said, just starting to really find its place in live entertainment, and now we'll see, but it'll come back. I really believe it'll come back.
Yeah, I think we're going to lose a couple of smaller shows. I think that the folks who couldn't afford it, I think you're going to see less expansion. A lot of shows were either flirting with or straight up trying the expansion, where it's like, we're doing this in this month, maybe we'll come back like twice a year, and I don't think we're going to see that. I think we're going to see a reticence to really like, stretch out over the year, spread the money. I think you're just going to have the shows on those weeks. I think you're also going to see a less abutting. Like I've seen a lot of shows where like, it's this show, a lot like it's con season where you're 2-3 months of convention. I think you're going to see them spread out, get some more room. I'd like. Do you
really? Because honestly, I don't mind when they're in different regions of the country and it's the same weekend. I don't know, man. But you're right. I mean, some are. God, I know Cincinnati had 2 shows for a while right on top of each other within like 2 weeks. New York had that issue. Jersey had that issue, I know. Yep. So I don't disagree with any of that. Add that you're nice. Yes, you noticed that Saturday I will be hosting Mark Millar's Pub. It's going to be fun. Of course, we're going to talk about how things are going on the Netflix shows. Yeah, they are cruising along. And when I spoke last to Mark at the beginning of the year or the end of last year, December. I think December of 19. Okay. Jupiter's Legacy was filming.
That's awesome.
American Jesus was filming as well. So depending, I would imagine what had to be done in post, I think we'll see that stuff really in the first quarter.
I think you're right. I'm hearing a lot of good stuff. I mean, I've heard also about Magic Order.
Yep.
The only one I haven't heard anything about is Reborn, which was the Greg Capullo Mark Millar book about the grandmother who goes to the afterlife, and in there she's younger, and it's a really dope looking book, and it's really fun.
I'll confess I didn't read Reborn. That sounds great. I haven't heard about that one either. I know of another one, and I would mention it, but I have a feeling I would let Mark tell me if I can talk about it or not.
Yeah, I'd want to check that
on that it's in recent production. And I'll find out if it's okay for Mark to talk about it or whatever.
Please, yeah, because I'd like to know anything about it. Because I'm like, I loved that book, and I'm like, man, that's the only one I don't hear anything about.
It wasn't Reborn. It is a different property that I'm talking about. But we'll see. That's very funny. No, Mark's going to be great. And Millar's Pub is going to be a lot of fun. And we've got a lot. We're going to do bar trivia. We're going to let people try and stump. Let's see if they can figure out good trivia questions about Mark's books. And certainly we'll be there to talk about his DC work and Marvel work as much as his Image work and Netflix work. So yeah, that's going to be great.
Hey,
Jason,
look at that.
How are you, Jason? Good to see you, man. Two of our favorite comic book podcasters. Very nice.
Yeah.
If you had to guess, where do you see Marvel or DC 1 year from now? This is what I wanted to talk about, Jason. You read our minds. Less books, more events, more variants, thoughts. Well, I do think both companies already are cutting their lines back a bit.
Yeah.
So there's that. I was on a convention diversity con yesterday and on a panel with Heidi McDonald and Andy Schmidt, a couple others. And Heidi asked, she's like, where do you see the monthly pamphlet going? And I'm like, as far as the big two go, I think they're trying to move away from that as far as being a physical item. And I think they're going to go to digital first and then, go to trades. However, as they pointed out, there is still the collector Wednesday Warrior market. Maybe it'll be like vinyl with music people. And it'll be less of a piece of the pie, but they will still likely put out at the very least, I don't know, first issues. And again, also the idea, like Jason said, variants, the fact that you can obviously have the opportunity of a 5-part story having different cover art and everything. Maybe that's enough to sustain the monthly magazines. I don't know.
I hope so. I like monthlies. I understand the issues with them. And I think that it's not so much that, everyone always wants to jump out and say it's very good for clicks. Comics are dying. The monthlies are dead. The people who cared about them were fired. But I think that it's so much more complicated than, if we get rid of this, then this will work. Or if we go full digital, it'll fix that. I know that DC is absolutely going to be pushing harder for digital just based on the actions they've taken alone. And based on the people they've put in charge of those initiatives, it seems like they're more interested in trying to make DC Comics into like a brand as opposed to a publishing house. And whereas Marvel, I think, is just happy with whatever the hell they've been doing for the last 20 years. Like I know that Marvel also recognized. Like let's look at Unbeatable Squirrel Girl. Unbeatable Squirrel Girl is a fan favorite title that sells like crazy in bookstores and scholastic markets, and for like its target demographic sells pretty bad in monthlies. But the reason to keep it in monthly is because the loss you take on the monthly market is so much is disproportionately favored in the after that market, you make it into a graphic novel or a like collected book market. Like the amount they make off of it is so much better in that market than it's worth the loss doing monthlies. I think there's something to be learned from that, and I think that
when do they learn?
But it's a lot. Like it's interesting.
But again, I don't know what they learn because again, I don't know, man. I hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
I don't know, and again, that's always been the recipe. I also think, and again, it's very easy to say this with hindsight. I recognize that.
Right.
Something I've been saying really since the pandemic and the various changes that have happened already. It's like, I really think DC and Marvel kind of squandered the last 20 years.
Yeah.
And they really stuck to, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And meanwhile, the Renee Telgemeyers and all the kids' comics and all the YA books that grew around them in spite of them sticking to what they do.
Yep.
They've all moved forward in comics, and the two superhero companies are still kind of doing things business as usual.
Absolutely.
Until recently.
Yeah. And even then, I think that it's more recently has been more reactionary than progressively. Like, I don't think they took a look like from the balcony at their strategy and said, here's where we're going wrong and here's how we can repair it, or how we can play with all the options and factor them into success for ourselves. I think it's more just like, well, what's happening now? What do we do now? What about that? Like the fact that, I mean, when you're growing up, just as a sliver of example, when you were growing up and you're reading a comic and the letters page, maybe there'd be one letter that said, I hate the direction the story is going, or I hated what happened in the last issue. And you got a really diplomatic response from either the editor or the writer who's saying something like, we love challenging ourselves, and we're looking forward to, we hope you give us another shot, something like that. Or we think you're really going to like what's happening in the next week, that kind of thing. But there's no way that the publisher or the editor was getting these like hundreds of letters and thinking, oh, they don't like it, let's change gears. They're like, no, those books are done. Like, those books are coming out. But I'm seeing an almost like knee-jerk reaction because the online reaction, which for me is just it's the exact same thing as letters pages, but with a different coat of paint on it. But they're going, oh no, look at all the likes. It's like, yeah, you know how much effort it takes to go click versus change your entire hardwired obsessive collector mindset? Like, they're buying the book. You know how I know they're buying the book? Because they keep complaining about it every month. Like, don't change it. Just let the story progress as it goes. But you're seeing those changes, and you're seeing the reaction to that. And so I think that that's like a small microcosm of the issue at large, which is reactionary versus progress, versus just going like, what are we doing wrong? As opposed to, what do they think we're doing wrong? What do we keep hearing that we're doing wrong? No. Be self-analytical. Think about what you're doing. You're a book publisher, for God's sake.
Well, they do sometimes. I mean, DC, about 5 or 6 years ago, I remember had their survey that they put out. And I talked to John Cunningham about that when he was still with DC.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons why I think maybe they did create those imprints, that they got rid of the names of the imprints, but the product is still there. Things like the YA books they're making.
Yes, the Wonder Comics.
Yeah. And right. Well, and Black Label going in the other direction. But even those like YA books, the mini graphic novels they've done, like the Catwoman one that Isaac Goodhart did,
yes,
or Mike Morisi's Nightwing YA book, things like that. So I think they're trying. And also Arden Franco did Superman of Smallville for a slightly younger audience and everything. So I don't know. But I was something I was going to ask you, because as I keep looking at you, I see all the art behind you and stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna solo you out and tell us about some of the art behind yourself there.
Oh, sure, yeah. This is the result of having a workspace and having just and being in the comic book industry, not like actually being in it, but commenting on it. Like, you get a lot of
covering
stuff.
It. Sure, man.
You get a lot of stuff, and
sure.
And like there's a lot of custom art. Like, this is a picture of myself and my wife as Spider-Man and Doctor Strange, which is done by
that's adorable. Who made that one? Who made it?
I can't remember his name. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm sorry, man.
No worries, man.
But a couple of these are done. Like, these are like Lego art, or not like those like melty pipe, like plastic thing art.
Okay.
Superman and the Batman. This Moon Knight poster here is a promotional piece of art drawn by David Finch for the Charlie Houston run at New York Comic-Con. Before the book came out, Marvel had a booth that no one came to that was promoting the Moon Knight book. And I walk up to Charlie Houston. I'm like, hey, man, Moon Knight's boring and stupid. What are you doing differently? And he was like, he's like, I am the world's biggest Moon Knight fan, and I promise you he's going to be cool. And I said, okay. And literally a Marvel rep shoved that piece of art in my hand and said, like, do you want to see Moon Knight? I'm like, no. Like, just completely dismissive. Picked up the book. It was incredible.
Oh, I'm a big fan. No, it was a good run.
Yeah.
Now you see, I am a big Moon Knight fan because of Doug Munch. Doug Munch, Chicago writer, and so maybe that's one of the reasons why. But no, I was always like, and when Sienkiewicz was drawing it and stuff.
Yeah.
So I've always, and then when Denny O'Neil was both editing and writing it and stuff. So yeah.
Yes.
I'm a big fan of that stuff.
I learned to become a Moon Knight fan.
That's
thanks
awesome,
to Charlie.
I'm looking at what else like there.
I got my Death to Superman poster that, of course, was on my bedroom door for years.
Wow, yeah.
I've got my this guy here is a lithio, or whatever you'd call it, a little mini poster of the Rebirth lineup that we got from WonderCon.
Sure. I have one of those, absolutely.
Yeah, we were probably like right next to each other again. Like, just I know we definitely have been in the same room together.
I got mine because I went to the retailer summits about Rebirth.
There you go.
And I got my buddies at Challenger put me on the list, and
nice.
It was fun. It was fun.
Yeah, that was a cool one. This is a custom piece of Swamp Thing art. It's just by an incredible member of the audience. This is an article about me from my local newspaper.
Fantastic.
It's just It's from like 20 years ago. I made a movie in town. It's not worth talking about, but like it's my first time with my name in print in like a real publishing house.
Well, no, you got to spend a minute on it. Sal, tell us about the movie. What'd you make?
I wrote a flick in high school. I was like obsessed with making it because I was very much a Kevin Smith kid, Jersey boy.
Sure.
I was like, I'm going to make my own movie too. Wrote this really obvious movie. And I spent a January period in college just shooting it. Wow. Knowing nothing about how to make movies.
Wow.
A cast of like dozens. It was way too ambitious, but I was like, it was legitimately like, I was like, okay, if I'm going to make this, I got to make it ready to go. And so we shot this terrible movie that is you're never going to see. And because it's not anywhere. But yeah, I made it for this one small window of time. I had a movie, we had a premiere, and then that was it.
Dude, fine. And I understand. And believe me, I literally have, I would say, of my 30 years in Chicago radio, I would say I was not very proud of probably the first 10 years in Chicago radio. And I just started getting good at the end of my run at sports radio. That said, again, we did it. And hey, man, you made a movie. A lot of people talk about making movies. You made a movie.
Thank you.
Good for you, man. And obviously you're doing great now, YouTubing and everything. So
yeah,
that's fantastic. I'm hip. Believe me, dude. Oh, are you kidding? I used to write articles for Boxing Illustrated. And, eventually I will write the Word Balloon book, and I am transcribing various interviews for it. But yeah, it's a hell of a lot easier open the mic and talking to somebody for an hour than writing it down.
Damn
Absolutely.
right.
Absolutely, man. No question.
Yeah, so much. This is just a smattering of the amount of stuff we have just on the walls. But I wanted to make this kind of like fun, kind of patchwork art thing. Because my wife did the same thing on the opposite wall with her stuff. I won't be able to turn around because I got a chalkboard in front of it. But like but she has a lot of like indie stuff on there, and I've got my comic book stuff. It's a lot of fun.
There you go. ChemDog says you don't give yourself enough credit. Hey, Emily, why is he bored? Is he bored talking to me? What are you saying?
Hell no, man. I'm having a great time. This is a dream come true, man. I remember because Jason was kind enough to jump into the chat earlier and ask a question, and I was like, I've known Jason and Ashley for a couple of years now because we're colleagues, and I knew their association with you, and I'm like, hey, you think I could ever get on Word Balloon? They're like, no.
Did they did?
No, they were very kind. No, they were like, I'll talk to John. And I was like, okay, cool. Like, because I was always in awe of like just what you guys are able to accomplish, and you're
me, but thank you.
Well, the Word Balloon podcast has a lot of freaking cachet. You guys are like that's like an outfit. Like that's like it's like if I'm Wizard Magazine, you're like the real thing. You're like the Comics Bulletin. Like,
oh, thanks, man. That's incredibly kind.
I'm more like Hero Illustrated, I think, more comparatively. But
no, what can I say? Like I said, I did talk radio for many years, 15 years.
You got that golden voice.
Oh, geez. I started the podcast in 2005. And it, I always use that George Burns joke of we were all in the top 10. There were only 8 of us. And it's kind of true. And just, sometimes, being appraised and people appreciating what you do is just showing up.
Right.
And I mean, I've been showing up for 15 years, so you can't get rid of me, man.
Why not? I mean, yeah, I'm good. Thank goodness, because your interviews are something that I really I aspire to try and accomplish, because like, you know how to ask a question, you know how to keep the audience engaged and keep your host feeling, comfortable and affable and willing to share. And that's a real talent. It's a genuine talent. It's something that I really, really admire.
Nice, that's really nice. Seriously.
Apropos of colleagues and stuff, I'll also point out one more thing. I got this really fun pencil drawing of Tom Holland as Spider-Man. This was probably not cheap.
Wow.
It was picked up by my friend Rob from Comics Explained, who got it for me, irrespective of nothing. He was just like, "Hey, I know Tom's your favorite Spider-Man." I'm like, "He is," and he's like, "Here, check this out." I'm like, "What is this?" An incredible drawing. I wish I knew the artist's name. I'm bad at that, but like,
no, that's
super
amazing.
fun. But I'll point that out just because I'm like, "Hey, Rob."
That's one of the great things about Artist Alley is you meet these artists that may not have a big name yet, but are amazing. I remember meeting a young Chris Somney 15 years ago and getting incredible art from him. Yeah, and I mean, right now, I mean, and since then, I've gotten even more great art, and I'm looking at one of my favorite pieces. I'd swing the camera over, but it would be tough to line it up again.
Bring it back.
He did. You know, Dan Dare is like the British Flash Gordon, basically.
Yeah, I know that name.
He did Dan Dare. Dan is a great, almost like 2001, the space helmets that they wear in 2001. That's the way his helmet looks, and he's in a nest with like a bunch of like what look like, you know, giant eggs. And then there's a giant like pterodactyl that's about to attack him.
Yeah,
and stuff. So that's it's this amazing picture. So here now some questions for you.
Oh sure.
And where the hell was it?
God,
here it is.
Amazing.
Bat Freeze wants to know what your favorite Alan Grant Norm Breyfogle Batman book is, and I love that run as well. So go ahead.
I think I'm going to go with the Death of the Penguin.
Interesting. All right.
A 3-part story, I think, where they kill. God, what's his name? He's so lame. I think they reveal he's not actually dead at the end. It doesn't matter, but it's a fun little story. It has that like camp, but also with the Norm Breyfogle grit that's coming. Like, because I was really excited. I'm like, oh, can we talk about Shadow of the Bat? Like, can we talk about the last arc?
Wow, that was great.
God, I've never seen anything like that. You know, like
yeah.
I'm watching Adam West runs before I'm going to the lake with my family, and then all of a sudden I pick up the last arc, and I'm like, and I had to go back, and that's when I picked up all the rest of Norm Breyfogle's run. Breyfogle is one of those people whose art I don't think people really appreciate. Like, I think because of so many, like, we lived in such a weird time when comics were coming out where it's like we just kind of like assumed things like, you know, Watchmen and, you know, Dark Knight Returns and like the Vertigo imprint in general were just things that happened in comics. Like, just these trend setting, you know, everlasting, you know, perfect stories are just going to keep coming. And like the Image Revolution, just, you know, this is just par for the course. Like, no, like, no, you do not get people like Breyfogle every generation.
Totally agree, man. I got a Breyfogle Batman that he was doing as a commission for someone else, and he smudged one of the bats, and it kind of glopped. And I went up to him. This is in 2005 or 6, and I'm like, you know, I've never seen you draw a Superman solo.
Ooh.
And he's like, oh, you know, I rarely do draw Superman. What do you want him doing? And this is like one of my first commissions.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, well, you know, I mean, I get to give you the pose, but if you don't want, and I'm like, have him react to a piece of kryptonite. And he's like, oh, that's a great idea. So when I went to pick it up, he had this other Batman piece that was just gorgeous, but it had this like smudge on it.
Yeah.
And he goes, I'll give this to you for $40.
Oh.
I'm like, done. Holy shit. And I was able, several of my pieces I got as friends, and they gave me friend prices, or I really got a lot of stuff in the early 2000s before the prices got crazy.
Yeah.
So I literally have an $80 blade that Gene Colan did for me.
No kidding.
And yeah, you know, and I have an $80 Tony DeZuniga Jonah Hex that he did for me. You know, yeah, stuff like that. Yeah. So you know, and then there's guys like Doug Mahnke who like is the boy. When we get back to Artist Alley, he is one of the greatest deals because he doesn't want to overcharge. That's nice. and is literally like, yeah, $60, fine. And he drew me this incredible Superman, and I'll
have to grab some of that because when I started going to conventions, I had like this sketchbook that's made from like, I don't know, rainforest trees or something like that. It's like this. I fancied myself a writer back in the day. A very pretentious friend of mine gave me this very pretentious book, and it sat on my shelf for like 10 years. And then I went to the con. I'm like, oh, I should bring a sketchbook. Grabbed that and started sharing it around and getting people to draw sketches in them. But like, I don't have a ton of like really impressive sketch. It's just more like, hey, do you have time for a headshot or something like that? And I wanted to see like how many I could get away with for like nothing or for some change, because back then I was broke. Like,
I hear you, buddy.
Created a blog to BS my way into going to conventions for free, you know, and that's another reason why I was like, oh, I could do the drive to Baltimore in a day, like no problem, because I can't afford a hotel. But yeah, I don't have a lot of those pieces. A friend of mine who I grew up with forever, out of nowhere, like good 5-10 years after we became friends, we're going through his comic book collection, and he pulls out these, like, you know, the comic book bags and boards. He has a couple of boards that have just a bunch of random head sketches on them. And he has like he has a Jim Aparo Batman profile.
Wow.
Yeah, he has a I think it's either, I don't remember who it is. It's a Daredevil, and I don't remember if it's Millar or not. But it's just like I'm like, oh my god! Knowing that he has this Jim Aparo, it's not like old, it's like classic. Oh,
right,
so amazing. But I have nothing like that, except for my wife one Christmas got me. Was it Christmas or was it my birthday? I don't remember. But like, she got me I'm a plebe when it comes to like superheroes and my favorite characters. My favorite characters, Batman, Spider-Man. What can I say?
That's cool. What the hell?
So when DeMatteis and Bagley did Batman, Spider-Man, I was like, this is all I want. And it was exactly what I asked for. Like, because it's DeMatteis, so it's not like stupid. He's like, oh, I'm going to talk about like people.
Right.
And give you a fight.
Mark is like one of the most underrated because he's one of the smartest writers, and his characterizations are always very deep.
Yeah. By the way, give us the Buscema DeMatteis spectacular run in Omni, please, everybody. Come on. But we got that, and I loved it, and then we got the second one, which I like almost as much. But my wife asked me, "Who's your favorite Spider-Man artist?" And I'm like, "Oh my god, that's like asking, who's your favorite child?" But I ultimately went back to Bagley because of Ultimate Spider-Man, and because like doesn't matter what iteration of Spider-Man he's drawing, he can do it, and he can do it in a way that like knocks your socks off. So before I know it, I get this pencil drawing of it's an updated version of the Batman Spider-Man cover, like. And it's just great. It's so good because he was also like, because Bagley, I'm sure you've talked to him a number of times.
Only in cons. I've yet to have him on the show, but I love to get him on the show. Great guy.
He is his worst critic, and he's always like, man, like if you show him his old stuff, he's like, oh, cool, that's just what I want to look at is his old crappy art from 20 years ago.
I know people that like him. Absolutely, man.
So you give him an opportunity, and he was like he said he couldn't do it, and then one day he was watching TV and he went, you know what, I do want to see that better, and so he did it anyway.
Wow.
Looked her up, and and
that's amazing.
That's a fun one because I also got because on that book, this is just a tangent, but like Scott Hanna had to share inking duties with somebody else. I don't remember who it was on that book. And that was Scott Hanna's first time inking Bagley's work.
Oh, wow.
But they didn't trust him enough because he was still like new. So they had somebody else like guide his inks for him or do inks over him. So I asked Scott Hanna to ink that piece, and he's like, this is awesome because now I'm finally get to do my inks on this cover.
Oh, fun.
It was cool. It was fun.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Like, so those are up in my house. Those are not in my office. Those are in my house. Look at those
now, and it's funny because Roberts wants to know.
Yeah.
Our very good. Thank you. I was told there'd be no math today. Question for the chat: do you enjoy the blank variant issues for sketch purposes? I at my last Terrificon, Bob Almond, the great Black Panther inker, recreated that great scene from that flashback Black Panther story where T'Chaka, the father of the Black Panther, is fighting World War II Captain America with the World War II shield, not the round shield, the other, the more knight in shining armor kind of shield.
Mm-hmm.
And
the pointy shield,
yes, the point exactly. And then so that's one. And then when he was talking about backboard sketches, I have two of my favorites, and one was Mike Kaluta at this tiny little show, and another great guy that would give you a beautiful piece and be like, and I'd be like, how much is it? How much can you pay? Or how much do you want to pay? He literally said, how much do you want to pay? Right. And there's, and I'm like, is $60? And again, I was in a situation like you. I didn't have a lot of money. I'm like, is $60 an insult? Not at all, son. And he draws me this beautiful shadow with a Bic thin line, pen. Yeah. Which is great. And then the other one that I have like that, and I, in fact, just retold the story when I had him back on the show, Chuck Austin. We all know Chuck is a writer, but we forget he was an artist as well.
I did.
Well, there you go.
I just forgot.
Now Chuck is sitting next to Darwin Cook. And I know a lot of people had problems with his X-Men run. But this couple, like boyfriend and girlfriend, went up, could not have been ruder to him. And it's like, do you like Juggernaut, Chuck? And he's like, yeah, he's one of my favorite characters. Well, that's strange because you don't know what the hell you're doing when you're writing Juggernaut.
Right.
And they just like abused him for 5 minutes. And Darwin is sketching next to him. and listening, and like you could see the shock on his face.
Yeah.
And they walk away, and he's like, I have never seen two people be so rude to a creator, to his face, ever. And Chuck's like, yeah, what are you gonna do? Now I'm in line for Darwin. And I had met Darwin a few times before, but I really felt bad for Chuck, and I'm like, yeah, that's really shitty.
Yeah.
And then it occurred to me, I'm like, wait a minute, Chuck was one of the Miracle Man artists. In fact, he drew the infamous childbirth issue that caused a lot of controversy back in the 80s. Yeah. So I'm like, I'm like, Chuck, you drew a Miracle Man. He goes, yeah. I said, would you draw a Miracle Man for me? I got out of line for a Darwin Cook sketch to get a Chuck Austin Miracle Man. And he drew it. It's beautiful, and it's on this backboard. And seriously, it's still one of my favorite pieces.
That's awesome.
And yeah, and really, I mean, I liked about half of what Chuck Austin wrote, but it's like that's 500. To say that to a baseball player, nobody bats 500. Come on, Jesus. Yeah. So yeah, what are you gonna do?
Yeah.
But yeah, that's interesting. Christopher says it's a kite shield. All right, fine.
Cool.
Now we know.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, man. It's funny being in this line of work, which I did not expect to be a line of work. I was just, when we started doing this channel, I just, I wanted to do sketch comedy and kind of slice of life kind of crap. And I did the comic book reviews because that's the only thing people were watching. And then it spilled into this. And when we started doing my flagship show, it's what I would normally do. I'm explaining a comic to two people who have no context for it. So it's just, it comes up and you're just like, oh yeah, this is pretty gratuitous, or you're making fun of you're playing with the. My long story short is I never expected anything that I would say to cross the ears of any of the people I'm talking about, because why would they watch my show? Why would they check that out? And it's just, you'd be surprised how often how small the industry gets and how it is. You're just like, oh yeah. Or you talk to somebody, you're like, hey man, I really like your work. You're like, yeah. They're like, yeah, because I saw your show where you made fun of me for 90 minutes.
Wow.
I'm like, oh, I don't know. I did not see that happening. I did not see that coming. I'm sorry.
That's hilarious, man. It happened to me in sports radio.
Yeah.
And it has, and luckily, see, I don't do critiques. And so I don't talk about books. I rarely talk about books I don't like. I had one instance where I did, and I met that creator, and the creator was mad. But I am pleased to say 10 years later, we had an amazing word balloon. And I'll leave it at that because I don't want to – I want to stay on this guy's good side, and I'm hoping he just didn't remember that I was the same guy 10 years earlier. But, and it's funny, Sal, because Greg has a good question. He loved the short off the rack weekly episodes you did.
Thank you.
Approximately 20 minutes a few years ago. Why did you change to hour-long episodes for the show?
If you're not familiar, we had the show. It's a review show. It's still the same show. It's over 300 episodes. Off the rack. Started out because we shot everything in a comic book store in my neighborhood, and so we would just grab a new book, read it, and then review it. My primary hosts for back issues don't have to do any prep. They just show up and I explain the book and they ask questions and make it interesting.
Sure.
But for Off the Rack, you have to know what the book is and you have to read it. And they had to read them and they didn't want to.
I get it.
Their job, they weren't getting paid. It wasn't like their job wasn't to read books and talk about them. Their job was to, if anything, nothing, but they're doing me a favor. They're going to hang out with me for an hour and shoot the show. So ultimately it just became a thing where it's like, I'm really asking them to do a lot of work. And when we stopped coming to the store, we stopped doing the show like that. Actually, that's not true. We carried it over, but we omitted one of our hosts because he just didn't. He was like, I'm not here to read the books. I'm here to do this one thing, and I have too much stuff on my plate to do anything else. So he stopped doing the show, and I realized it wasn't fair to ask the other host to do it anyway. And my wife was getting into more and more comics, and she is so insightful and interesting, and has such a great flair for explaining and for a passion for indie books and those big two books that you don't read or you ignore, or you don't notice, and make you excited about them. And that dynamic became more interesting to me than forcing two other people who didn't want to read the books in the first place to review a book they didn't want to read. So the show became that. And also it was, the YouTube algorithm was shifting so that if we did a 15-minute show where we reviewed one, an Iron Man issue, that show might have done like 7,000 to 10,000 views. In today's world, that same episode do 2,000, 3,000 views just by nature of the algorithm.
Okay.
So there's a lot of work that went into it, lights, camera, editing, all that stuff. A lot of work that went into that. And then to put it out and have it have diminishing returns just doesn't appeal to me, because I'm not going to make a show nobody's going to watch, or to a fraction of the audience is going to watch. We started doing it live on this, with this as the background, and I noticed that the numbers were really good. The interaction was better. We were able to morph the show into something a little more of what people looked for, which is reviews, but also recommendations. And so we have a better show as a result. More people are watching it. We have an opportunity to also, because of the nature of it being live, we can make it like, oh, this book came out, or oh, this thing came out. Let's just sit down and do it right now. And there's no prep work that's required outside of just having read the books. So it made sense to do it that way.
I hear you, man. Are you doing this full time, or do you have other
job, man? 3 years.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
That's fantastic.
But 3 years full time.
No, that's excellent, man. Well, I got let go with did I do it right? Yeah, I did it right. Oh no, I didn't. I put a B in there instead of a, sorry about that.
That's okay.
See? Again, I was told there'd be no spelling.
At least you heard Sal. Like most people, whenever I place an order for pickup from a restaurant, they don't know what the hell my name is. Sam, Al, Cal. I'm like, how many Cals do you know?
Cal, other than Superman, of course. Absolutely.
Of course. I'll take
that. That's hilarious. Yeah. That's very funny, man.
Thank you, man.
Well, congratulations on that.
My pleasure.
I got let go from my radio job at the beginning of April.
Yeah, I heard. I'm really sorry to hear that. We never actually had a chance to talk about it. I'm really sorry to hear that. They missed out, man. They're missing out.
Well, honestly, it wasn't a local decision. It was a corporate decision. They lopped off a lot of people,
right,
that were doing good work. It was just a matter of tightening the budget, because the commercial money isn't there for them. So yeah. I never took it personally or anything. It's cool.
Good.
What
are
you gonna do? But no, and thankfully, the League of Word Balloon listeners and my sponsors have been incredibly kind, standing behind me. And so far so good. It's working out. So
plug the Patreon, man. Tell them.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, here I got the banner. There we go. Boom, right there. There's the crawl. So and truly, if you are new to the channel and you're coming here because you're a Comic Pop fan, I hope you're enjoying the conversation. I hope you'll consider subscribing, checking out the guests that I have on Word Balloon. Yeah. And I think you'll find a nice conversation, as Sal and I are having right now, and we'll have with others during Baltimore Comic-Con. Sal, are you other than hosting like the feeds and stuff like that, are you doing D&D? Are you with Zub? What are you doing?
No, I intelligently passed that on to somebody else.
Okay,
I pulled in a fellow YouTuber, Caped Joel, is going to be DMing the show, and as such, he's going to, rather than me try to like wrangle them and have him DM, it made more sense to me to just let him DM the show, run the show. He's good at it. He likes doing it, and it's a great exposure for him anyway. But it's going to be a lot of fun. You really need to check that. It's going to be right after the Ringo Awards, at 11 p.m., I think.
Yes, Saturday night at 11. Yeah, 11 Eastern, Saturday night after the live Ringo Awards. That's going to be an amazing event on its own. And definitely. I don't think I'm allowed yet to say who the host is and who the keynote speaker, but I do know about both, and they're very big names, and they're very entertaining names. We'll leave it at that.
Definitely worth checking out. I've never seen too many like comic book award shows outside of the one time I can say, because they had eliminated the category and stopped allowing comic book YouTube channels to apply for them. We're the only Harvey nominated comic book YouTube channel.
Congrats, man.
Thank you. It was a couple years ago. We went. It was a very awkward day, but we had a great time. And yeah, I haven't licensed the logo. I don't think that Reed will let us do it, but I got to go and see the show, and it was really interesting. It was a really cool experience.
That's cool.
I don't know why I like award shows. I think it's because of my. I used to be a movie guy. I'm still a movie guy, but like, but I'm a big. I used to watch the Academy Awards like every year.
Oh God, yeah, me too. I still do, and this will probably be the first year that I'm not with my group of friends and everything watching it. That's okay. But
you should turn it into a watch party. Get your team, make it a live show.
We could do that, actually. I'm sure my friend would be interested. My friend who hosts it might be interested in doing that.
Yeah.
It's an amazing byproduct, and I'm still in the union, so it still applies.
Ooh.
The Radio and Television Union merged with the Screen Actors Guild.
Oh.
So I get screeners for the SAG Awards.
Oh, that's awesome.
And a lot of them obviously are Oscar nominees as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm it's like it was the best radio perk ever.
Definitely.
And I'm still in the union, so I still get my screeners, and I will be getting my screeners this year.
Does that mean you can also be in Hollywood pictures without having to worry about it? Like, you're technically a member of SAG? Like,
well,
can you be on the set?
I don't know. I would assume so, because I am a SAG member. I am a real union member. Dues.
There you go.
My hospitalization, all my medical comes from SAG, and my dental.
Nice.
But I was going to say, I also 10 years ago I did a TV show called Prophets of Science Fiction. It was on the Science Channel, one of the Discovery channels.
Yeah.
And I got it because the producers like Word Balloon, and they're like, "Wow, you seem to know a lot about science fiction history." I'm like, "Well, as a fan," and they're like, "Well, we're looking for a knowledgeable fan. Would you be one of our talking heads?" And man, I'm telling you, I did 3 episodes. It was for Jules Verne, Isaac Asimov, and George Lucas.
Oh, that's awesome.
And the Asimov and the Verne ones especially, I was really proud of what I got to do. And the Asimov, first of all, Ridley Scott was the host. We never met him. They shot all of our talking head segments separately.
Yeah.
But, and again, this was 11 years ago. No, 9 years ago now. 2011 is when it came out.
Yeah.
We shot it, I guess, in 2010. The Asimov episode ends with Harlan Ellison saying something about Asimov, me saying something about Asimov, and then Ridley Scott closes the show. And when it premiered, I'm watching it with my old college roommate, and he turns to me and he goes, "What of those 3 things does not belong in that set?" Isaac Asimov, Ridley Scott, and Captain Schmuck. I'm like, let me think about that. I'll get back to you in a minute. Like, really, I'm like, okay. So yeah,
I appreciate your support. Thank you.
Exactly, and I got my IMDb credit for
that's dope, man.
So that's kind of cool.
That is very cool. Are you kidding me? That is awesome.
All because of Word Balloon. I swear to God, it's insane.
Isn't that fantastic? Like, being in this like thing that I do for free, like I get to then leverage it into something that I'd never expect, or I never thought I'd ever get to, not just talking to the greats, but also being like opportunities and experiences that otherwise would be closed to me just by virtue of having the guts to get on camera and share my opinion in public.
You got it, buddy.
Lesson everybody out there, by the way. Like, don't if you have the option, take it, do it. Because you never know. It's incredible.
It's the truth, man. Here's an interesting question. If either of you were given the offer to write a 12-issue series about one forgotten comic character, who would it be and why? I've got my answer right away.
Okay.
King Faraday, the DC Nick Fury spy equivalent.
Yes.
I love King Faraday. I think he's a great character with a lot of unwritten potential. I loved when Paul Gulacy did his early 4-issue mini on that. And anytime he pops up in stories, I'm just a massive fan. So that would be my guy.
It's funny. It's been a long time since I've thought about this, because I've been like so in another realm when it comes to like writing and creating, but I've been pushing my wife, who is a like classic Vertigo Sandman fan, to write a Sleepwalker pitch.
Fun.
Like, take Sleepwalker and turn him into like a Morpheus, but an alien, and make that interesting. Because I feel like Sleepwalker's too cool a design to let rot in, like next to Night Thrasher and other characters like Night Watch and other characters with night in their names. Like, I feel like there's just too much opportunity with Sleepwalker. He just looks too cool, and you could get rid of the tights and keep the cloak, but I mean, it's about an alien that infects your dreams. And that's how he like survives, and he wants to do good. He takes over your body. Like, there's something there, and especially with the dream angle, I think there's something there. And I want to hear my wife, because every time my wife gives me a pitch, I'm like, oh, that's way better than what I would do. Damn it! Why are you so funny and smart and brilliant? What are you doing with me? Don't meet anybody else. Stay in the house. But
no, it's a fun idea, absolutely. Yeah. And I have other like independent comic creator ideas,
totally.
But I mean. and it's so funny because my friends are like, well, you know a bunch of cartoonists. Why don't you make something? And I'm like, because my cartoonist friends are all A-listers. And they're not, they're not going to waste I wouldn't make them. I wouldn't even ask them to waste their time with my little bullshit ideas and stuff like that. Yeah. So, I wish I could draw. And maybe someday I'll find the proper art partner that might be interested in my stuff. We'll see. But yeah, that's hilarious. Okay. Oh, excuse me. We already said that one. Let's see if there's another good question here. Oh, this is nice, and I would be happy to. I'm not gonna obligate you, Sal, but I would love to be on the Elseworld Exchange.
Love to have you next time you're free. We'll make it happen.
Dude.
We go live on Tuesdays, so I don't know if you're free, but Tuesday like around noonish, 1:00.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, yeah, like you, Word Balloon is my full-time concern, so I'd be happy. I'd be happy to spend a noon with you guys. Absolutely, that'd be great. So. Leandro, good point. Years ago, me and my younger brother went to a comics festival here in Brazil where we met and got sketches from Sergio Topi. Very cool, man. Yeah. Good Lord, so many great South American artists. And it took a while, but, of course, we love Eduardo Risso from his great collaborations with Azzarello over the years.
Yes.
And Brian's like, have you ever read Eduardo's comics? I'm like, no. He said, well, you should. And I'm like, all right, I'll look for him. And I didn't. Oh my God, he's amazing. Or a guy like, and then forgive me, I don't remember. He might actually be in Spain. Victor Santos, another great Azzarello collaborator that I was introduced to through Brian's writings, and then really appreciated Victor's stuff. Did you see? Victor has his image. It's his own creation called Polar, which is kind of like a hitman character of his.
I think so. Yeah.
And Netflix had a very solid action movie based on Polar.
Oh,
and it's still there. It's
I did not see that.
Yeah,
no.
it's actually really, really good. Really, really good.
Comic. That's cool.
Yeah. So and it's funny. There's another panel we're doing on Saturday. We're doing a Spy Comics panel, and we're doing it with Jeff Parker, who's been writing a lot of Dynamite James Bond stories, including the James Bond Origin comic.
Yeah.
Also, Stephanie Phillips is joining us, and Stephanie has a great new Aftershock book that's coming out in November called Red Atlantis. That's a cool espionage book. And then Brian Stelfreeze and Doug Wagner just are finishing their Kickstarter campaign for their new spy character, Thomas River, who is a Baltimore-based spy.
Nice.
So that's another reason why. And it was so funny. Yeah, Randy from Baltimore Con is like, hey, you should talk to Stelfreeze and Doug. And I'm like, oh, my God, we could build a whole spy comic panel around them.
Totally.
So, yeah. So I'm a big Nick Fury fan. Another one of my original commissions, I have a Bill Reinhold classic Nick Fury. Pre-Samuel L.
Sure.
Great templed Nick Fury.
Oh, nice.
Well, because, again, I'm such a fan and everything. Yeah, this is funny. Bad Freeze, I would definitely do a Creeper. But I love the Creeper. I think the Creeper is a great character.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of the Creeper. So
I'm trying to think if there's any really obscure characters that I would ever want to I think I like the challenge more than I have the idea. I don't have a pitch of a list of characters. But if Marvel or DC were ever to be like, here's Ambush Bug, go for it, I'd be like, done. I'll take the opportunity. I know better than to think about it for a couple days. I just say yes, and then and then figure it out afterwards.
Understood, man. I want to point out because, we're hitting on I'm fine. I don't know if you're okay.
Sure, yeah.
I don't want to wear out my welcome.
Totally.
But,
no.
Let's talk about. I appreciate that, buddy. Let's talk about Saturday programming. Yeah. So someone mentioned earlier at noon Eastern, we're going to have Miller's Pub. Mark Miller is going to be doing that. That's going to be fantastic. We've also got cosplayer that creates armor and helmets and weapons. Evil Ted Smith is going to either make a weapon or a helmet for us in an hour. And that's going to be really interesting for people that like that. And then also we're going to have a trivia show called Win Tom's Comics, where Tom Prevost, it'll be a quiz. It'll be a lot of fun. And then a Shelley Bond spotlight, the great Vertigo editor, and she's currently editing Bitter Root. She will be interviewed by Vita Ayala. So that's going to be great. And then, of course, we're going to get into the Ringo Red Carpet and the Ringo Awards. We're also going to have from noon until 6 the Ringo nominees panels, where it's going to be a lot of Ringo nominees interviewing other Ringo nominees and speaking amongst themselves. And that's going to be highlighted or headlined by Ryland Grant and David Pepos and David Avalone, among others. And that's going to be a lot of fun to see. Then we're going to have the red carpet for an hour from 6 to 7. and that's going to be not only Sal and myself, but also Christy Blanche from All Yeah Comics in Muncie, a great knowledgeable retailer. We'll be talking about the nominees. We'll also be playing a lot of tributes to Mike Ringo that have been recorded by a lot of the creators, and that's going to be amazing.
Great.
And then we're going to go to the Ringo Awards live, and that's going to be an incredible performance with all the nominees and all the award winners.
Yeah,
it's going to be a lot of fun. We're looking forward to that. So that's all on Saturday.
Yeah.
At Baltimore Comic-Con live.com. Do I have I think I've got the banner still.
Yeah.
To remind everyone, that's where you go.
And you should, by the way, if you do check out the Ringo Awards, stay, because right afterwards, there's actually 2 different panels. You get to see a Lucifer behind the scenes, which I believe you're hosting yourself, man.
Yes, Joe Anderson, my buddy, is the co-executive producer of Lucifer from season 1 on. A great guy. And he's going to be there for all the Lucy fans. And then opposite that, if you're in the gaming world and enjoy Dungeons and Dragons, Jim Zub and your buddy is the Dungeons Master. Who's your buddy again?
Joel Daly will be hosting and DMing the game with comic book creators like Jim Zub, Tom Akel, Troy Little, and of course Cecil Castellucci will be there as well.
Yeah, that's great. Cecil's the best. She is so funny.
I'm in the email chain, and as are you, and she's so genuine, and she's like, "Oh, we're making our own character sheets. What do we do?" Like, it's just. I'm not even involved in the conversation. I'm just enjoying the show. So I'm really looking forward to that. Man, Zub is so infectious and so charismatic and friendly. Like, you gotta watch. And he does his own show. Like, he does his own D&D show. So you definitely check it out.
Oh, he's great. And Jim's one of my favorite creators because he's also incredibly giving in terms of advice to writers.
Yeah.
And I just think that's awesome as well. So if you want more details on Baltimore Comic-Con, that's the website, BaltimoreComicConLive.com, and you will learn a lot and see the incredible programming that we've put out. We're all very proud of it, and seriously, it's again, I'm really glad that Sal's involved with this thing as well.
I'm flattered.
Let's see here. What creators are on your wish list to do a Long Bendis tapes interview with?
Ooh.
I don't know, Mario. I mean, honestly, I've been very fortunate and I'm really lucky, and everyone that I've wanted to talk to has usually said yes. They would be old timers that I haven't had on the show yet. I'll tell you one guy that I was trying really hard to get, and it's just tough to get him, and I think he just wants to stay private, is a great Bronze Age writer for DC, Cary Bates, the great Flash writer and Justice League writer and Superman writer.
Yeah.
And I've talked to a lot of his buddies from that era and said, do you think? And it's like, he really just wants to be doing his own thing. Okay. And truly, I think he's one of the greatest Superman writers ever, and Justice League writers for that matter, and Flash. But yeah, it'd be great to talk to him. So if I had to name somebody, he's up at the top of the list. And I mean, God, I'm trying to think of others. I mean, because really everyone's been incredible. I mean, and also, God, in these last 8 months during the pandemic, I've hit up people that I hadn't talked to in a long time, like Walt Simonson and Louise.
Yeah,
it was great finally getting Louise on a conversation. She was incredible. She will also have a one-on-one
that's right
spotlight panel with Christy Blanche interviewing her. So we're very proud of that. Also, I would say like those are the obvious ones that immediately come to mind. So there you go. Let's see.
Thanks to your lead, I've been I've taken the initiative in a big bad way and trying to get more creator interviews on our shows as well. Right. Just because, like, I think that there's like, I'd like to get your opinion about this before we jump into more, because like I think they're really important. I think creator interviews are super important. I think that they're super insightful. They're the kind of thing that, like, I don't think they have to be a niche. It's like, oh, I like creator interviews versus I like this other thing. Like, I think that everyone should want to do, like, in any comic book or entertainment commentary medium, the direct from the source is always the best place to get your info. And if you are talking to someone who is in any way excited about what they do, you're going to get some really terrific behind the scenes stories, insights into your favorite characters or moments, and get some really cool like opportunities. I mean, why ever would you want to meet your idol if you didn't want to hear them tell you a tale of their like glory days? But like, I've noticed over the year that we've been doing it, we've done them over the years, but like this year, particularly because of COVID, we've had a lot of, we got a lot of people that we wouldn't normally have gotten, who are just like, I'm free. Like we got Brian on the show. Brian Bendis finally came to us.
Oh, hey, that's awesome, man.
He's like, I'm free. All right, let's do it. Todd McFarlane was a big deal for me.
Terrific.
I was like, oh my God, Todd's talking to me. And that was like I think almost 2 hours of him talking and about 2 minutes of me, be like trying to transition to the next thing, which I think was fantastic. But like, what do you think is the most valuable thing? Like, why do you think people should listen to them, to creator interviewers? Like, if you had to sell them to somebody, like, why care about what a creator has to say about what they do?
Everything you just said in terms of straight from the horse's mouth. I mean, the one thing that bothers me about certain podcasters is when they critique, especially when they critique something, they have a lot of assumptions of why something happens the way it does.
Right.
And I understand because, again, they're only talking amongst themselves. They don't talk to the creators. But with that in mind, there are times that they're wrong about why something happens the way that it does.
Yeah.
And wouldn't you rather get the right information than just be kind of smug and be like, well, that's stupid. I don't understand why they do that. It's like, there probably is a reason.
Yeah.
And maybe you'd want to find out. And the other thing is, I mean, again, like you said, I am beyond what they produce. I am always interested in creative people and their creative process and what inspires them. And I feel a kinship, even though I'm only commentating. And, some people are like, well, you're not creating anything. I'm like, I kind of think I am. And I kind of think I have been, but thanks for playing. Again, like coming from another podcaster, that was a comment, well, you're not creating anything. I'm like, I create something every couple of days, a week. Absolutely.
Exactly.
But anyway, I'm inspired by hearing their stories, what excites them. The greatest compliment I always get is when a creator is at a convention and someone comes up and says, I heard you on Word Balloon and I heard you're into baseball cards. Well, so am I. What's your old? And then they start talking about something beyond the comic book.
Yeah.
And in fact, last Wednesday, I haven't released the audio yet, but I had a great conversation with Dave Gibbons.
Oh,
and Dave and I talked for about 90 minutes, and it was this much about comics and everything else he's interested in. Yeah. And he was so happy, and literally, and he is not like Alan Moore in terms of understands that Watchmen is going to come up,
right?
And he's okay to talk about it. But it was so funny. With like 10 minutes left in the conversation, he's like, Sean, we haven't spent a moment talking about Watchmen. This has been lovely. And I'm like, Dave, we've been talking for 11 years. I know what you want to talk about and what you know. I'm like, we've talked enough about Watchmen. That's all right. People, and the other great thing was no one in the chat had Watchmen questions.
That's
and
great.
Again, I told this to him. I'm like, it's kind of like the Pythons having to talk about that 5-year period when they made that TV show and the films. And it's like, okay, but that all was literally at earliest 40 years ago, or most recent 40 years ago.
Yeah.
They've done a lot since and before that they wouldn't mind talking about as well.
Absolutely.
And, but again, they get it. They're like, okay, that was our period. That was our moment. And that's the thing with Alan and Dave and Watchmen. It's like, God, we don't want this to happen anytime soon. But when the time comes and their obituaries are written, Watchmen creator passes away. That's just the way it's going to be.
Yeah.
So, and that's all right. That was a monumental, as I keep saying.
It could be worse. It could be. Yeah. It's not like creator speedball. It's just
the fact that DC has hung on to the rights to Watchmen. It's like, because nobody expected them to make Moby Dick, but they did. And it's like, all right, what do we? We could be nice guys and give them full rights. But that's a big cash cow that they keep.
Yeah, no,
it is what it is, man.
Yeah.
So
it's funny you mentioned Alan Moore, and it's like he's one of those people. It's like I don't even know what the hell I would talk to him about because you saw. I mean, recently I think that was actually in our list of things we might actually talk about today. Was just the news cycle was just like, oh, a great opportunity to poke the bear and give him and get some clicks out of him.
Alan Moore.
At this point, what Alan Moore is going to say. Like back when V for Vendetta the movie came out, we all knew what he was going to say about the movie. I didn't see the movie. I don't want to see the movie. The movie's trash. We know what he's going to say.
Good Alan Moore.
Thank you. I've been working on it for a few years. But you know, like he like, I don't care. I just want to meet the guy. I just want to talk to him for 2 minutes about, like, you know, sandwiches. I don't care what it is, as long as, because it's like I like to keep refreshed on books from 30 years ago, so I'll keep Wizards in the bathroom. And when I do, like, you'll pull up like a 3-page article. They flew some schlub to Northampton to talk to Alan Moore, and he talks to them for like 2 hours, and you're like, that's amazing. Like, it's amazing the level of like openness he had 25 years ago versus today, where it's like people just annoyed the crap out of him until he's finally like, I don't want to talk about that anymore. Like, not only I don't want to talk about it anymore, but like, I don't know, maybe like, it'd be funny if he actually said something like, just to sabotage the interview, because he knows, you know, poke the bear, he'll say something controversial, right? But like, if he said something like, my favorite superhero is Spider-Man, and I think he's a great character, I wish I could have had a chance to write him, you know, something like, what? That doesn't generate views.
Yeah,
you know?
but I feel bad. I again, and then forgive me, everybody, because a lot of my viewers and listeners have heard me say this before. I feel like Watchmen for Alan Moore is like a guy that built his dream house and then built out his backyard to be everything he wanted to be: pool, deck, incredible barbecue, everything you could want in your backyard. And then he got a divorce. And the wife got to keep the house. And every time people see him or want to talk to him, it's like, hey, remember your house and how amazing it was? And it's like, yeah, I do. And now all of a sudden my eye's twitching because you reminded me of my divorce. Fuck you. Why are we talking about this?
Dude, we just had a crazy great party at your old house with your wife, and we had a great time, and she's single, you know? Like,
and that house is still amazing and everything. And you don't own it anymore. How's it feel? How you doing?
No. Actually, they did an addition on it, and they like changed the pool, and now there's like a hot tub, and it's like really crappy, and it diminishes the regular pool.
That's what I mean, man. Poor Alan Moore, and that's why that article didn't surprise me. Where it's like, yeah, fuck comic books. How's that?
Yeah, of course. But I would. That's so fun. It's just, every once in a while, some jackass remembers that Alan Moore exists and goes and bothers him and like does it, and then I see it across the whole spec, like every single thing. Did you hear about Alan Moore? I'm like, yeah, man. I know the story.
You know, I was looking at your Twitter feed, and I'm really glad you posted.
Oh, thank you.
This is a sad story that you posted, and from AARP about the treatment of Stan Lee in his final years. And man, we all heard rumors. It is an incredible article. I'll even share the screen and show it, at least the top of it, to everybody.
Yeah.
And I highly recommend this because it's incredibly sad, and it's something that I think we really need to read and appreciate. Sadly, what happened to Stan in his final years. Why isn't it showing up on my on my tabs? I don't know why. But all right, well, it's at AARP, and if you follow Sal, you'll find the link to it.
This is true.
But it's incredible, and it's just heartbreaking. And I don't mean to bring us down with a sad topic, but I do think that it's a worthy point of discussion.
Yeah.
And man, I'm sure everybody saw at that final convention where Stan was taking celebrity photos.
Yeah.
And he's all hunched over. I mean, he might not have even known, it seems, that where he was. I mean, it's horrible. And also, sadly, you know, I had kind of heard that his daughter wasn't the nicest and sharpest knife in the box. And it seems to confirm that. Also, I was amazed, but it shouldn't be, that she's 70, his daughter.
Yeah.
But I guess, you know, Stan was in his 90s.
Right.
And, you know, do you know the great writer Studs Terkel?
I know the name. I'm not familiar with their work.
He passed away in the 90s or the 2000s and stuff. Well, he was a great writer that was based in Chicago, and he made it to his very late 80s. And I went to visit him at his house one day to do an interview, and his 65-year-old son answered the door. And I'm like, okay. And I'm like, yeah, it makes sense, you know, whatever. Yeah. But yeah, that was a surprise that I thought Stan's daughter might have been younger.
Yeah, and then it's like, I guess he's be 25. Yeah, that makes sense. Like, you know.
Sure. Yeah.
It reminds me of the Mandelbaums from Seinfeld, where it's like,
yes,
Dad, it's go time. I feel like,
I love Floyd Bridges. That's right. That's fantastic. Mandelbaum.
The Mandelbaum family is amazing.
That's fantastic.
But I was actually, for me, I was like, wow, the AARP wrote an amazing article about Stan Lee in a comprehensive way that we have been sorely lacking in the comic book, you know, news outlet. You know, it's like I've seen
go on.
Like, I've seen like in terms of print, like in terms of writing a straight up column. I've seen chronicling. I've seen like up to the minute updates, and then it just kind of fell off. But this is a really nice job of actually giving you like a distillation of what happened, when it happened, to whom it happened, and what can be gleaned out of it. Because AARP, of course, their lean was about elder abuse, like
elderly abuse,
bread and butter, like. But
Sal, I'm glad you brought that up though, because honestly, and this is no disrespect meant to any of my friends that write for the comic book news blogs that exist. Editorially, they don't want that. They want the top 10 and top 5 lists. They want clickbait stuff.
They know,
and it disappoints me. There were a few that were doing it really up until recently, and a lot of those got absorbed, and again, by other companies. Yeah. And that's not where their interest lies. Yeah. And thankfully there are attempts independently to still provide that sort of coverage, but they are few and far between. Yeah. I just and also, I mean, the plight of someone that writes for these blogs, they don't make a lot of money, if they even make any money at all.
Right. Yeah, they get it for the byline. Like, that's kind of it. Like, I will shout him out. Chris Arendt.
I was going to say, he's an exception. Chris is great.
Well, Chris has been a big advocate of, like, I don't know, integrity in comic book news reporting, and posited a really solid suggestion, which was just like an independent outlet that wasn't dependent or contingent on clicks and ad revenue, in order to give unbiased, timely news updates about the industry. I think we talked frankly about it. And I basically was like, it just isn't sexy or financially viable enough. You need to get like a crew of people. Like, you need a team of like, at least 5 to 10 people who are like around the world who can talk more intelligently about this and be, and have the scruples to say something like, this is alleged, this is not, this is reported, this is, without saying this is happening as a certainty, because that's where we are right now, where everything that is suspected or rumored is written as a certainty, so that you can click on it. And of course, if you click through all those hyperlinks, it always gets back to some BS nonsense from some Reddit post, and you're like, this isn't anything. This is unsubstantiated. I wish like there was an organization, like if the Hero Initiative could or some organization that had where their cup runneth over. I'm not talking about the Hero Initiative, of course, but like an organization that had that was entirely funded, like the PBS of comic book news reporting. It'd be really nice to see like public funding, maybe like a Patreon for that kind of group, where it's like, just you pay for it and you get what you pay for, which is unbiased, like scrupulous news about the comic book industry. But we need something like that today, because
I hear you.
We don't have it.
No, I think Comics Journal was one of the last places that was doing stuff like that. Tom Spurgeon, before he passed away, was one of the last people to independently do it.
Completely.
Yeah, and it's it's sorely lacking. I miss Tom. Great guy. I don't know if you ever had the pleasure of
I did not. I've only known him through his work, which I'm very great inspiration.
I completely agree, and I agree with Langley as well. Yeah. Yes. No, it's and the other thing, and it's too easy to brush with a wide brush and say it's of, because I don't believe it's of all comic news blogs. No, but there's a filter lacking, an editorial filter sometimes. Yep. And I do think a lot of irresponsible pieces do get posted.
Totally.
And that's what's missing. And it's weird also when you say that we need this. I remember when I was working for Sporting News Radio, and they were very much a multimedia company, doing things online as much as in print in their magazine and on the radio. And for their website, I would write these long pieces, and the editorial side would be like, can you cut that down? And I'm like, it's the internet. It's infinite space. Yeah. I'm like, what am I blocking? Well, we like shorter pieces. So I'm like, well, then I'm not interested in writing for you anymore. See you later. And I mean, it was just crazy stuff like that. Absolutely. Granted, when you are freelance, I see publishers not caring, but when you're an editor or have a contract and you make a company so much money, they really need incentive to take care of those employees. I see what he's talking about, I guess, freelancers and stuff.
Yeah, well, and he's like devil's advocating, like, you need to make it, you gotta get the clickbait. Otherwise, if you don't get anybody clicking, there's no point in, like, is it, if you're starving to death, is a birthday cake sustenance or not? And it's like, technically no, but it is food as opposed to nothing. If you're a comic book news outlet and you primarily report on BS or not, or rumors, is that better than not having them exist at all?
Well, again, it's what is your agenda with that blog, and and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with fluff. There's nothing wrong with fluff. There's nothing wrong with even being a little salacious, I guess. But it's just a shame that what is missing is, as Joe Zilla even said, in quoting you, an NPR for comic journalism.
Right?
Yeah, that would be great. I completely agree.
Yeah, I think there's a way to make it like the way I put it, like because it's like Hollywood term, sexy. Make everything sexy. It doesn't even need it doesn't even have like sexual nature to it. Just like everything's got to be really sexy and clickable. And it's like, I get that, I really do. But like sometimes, like, we're selling toothpaste here, ladies and gentlemen. Like, come on, like come on. But I think there's a way to make. There is a way to click on an article about Stan Lee and his elder abuse allegations, or the allegations laid against the people surrounding him in his final days, and make that clickable. I mean, it's making the rounds, and it's an AARP article. Like, how many times has anyone watching the show read an article by the AARP?
I did, because
okay, fair enough. Well,
I'm an old man.
They definitely have
because they send me shit in the mail. I haven't joined yet,
but I know my pamphlet's coming.
My 4 p.m. early bird special at Denny's is waiting for me. I'm sure
it's just practical to eat. Then I'm just saying.
No.
But,
clearly I don't miss a meal with this chin, with these double chins. But hey, man, no, it's you're right. I don't know, man. I all I know is another reason why I do Word Balloon is to hopefully, and do these interviews, is to treat these creative people like authors and filmmakers and people who make television, because they're doing that kind of creative storytelling, and they deserve a forum where they're treated with respect.
Absolutely.
And that's all I'm going for. I always say I'm a journalist with a small J, and that it is an entertainment show. Every now and then I will talk about a serious subject that I would like to get to the bottom of, but I am, I'm a one-man band and I can only do so much. And
same here, man.
Yeah.
When I found out, I did a big, not like a big private research initiative the other day, just for using social media across our Reddit, Facebook, Instagram, Discord, YouTube channel, Twitter. I basically was like, where do you find out about new comic books? Like, how do you know what's coming out? And a frighteningly disproportionate amount of our audience found out from us. And I'm like, oh no, I should not be the source for that information. I commentate. If I'm your source for news, like it's like when people found out that like the Daily Show was most people's like foundation for news, and they were like, no, we're a comedy show. Similarly, but I took that as a kind of like, as a kick in the pants to be like, okay, well, let's be a little more responsible about that. Like, make sure
you go.
Talk about like what's coming out next week. Talk about it. Like, make sure to include every episode.
It's the Peter Parker axiom. Absolutely. With great power comes great responsibility.
Exactly.
No, I hear you, man.
It is in some measure some great power, though it is only about like letting people know when something new is coming out. But it's like, what the hell are these guys doing? Like, at these companies, like if your audience, who buys way more comics than I do, doesn't know about the new books coming out, but I do, you're doing something wrong. Like,
someone asked earlier, I think it was Langley, had asked for you to tease what books you might be talking about this week.
We got my big show back issues. We've isolated this October. My wife is a big horror fan. She's a big manga and anime fan, and so when I told her, because COVID made everything upside down and crazy, so I was like, who cares? Like we used to have to tie in episodes to movie releases, but then since that's no longer a thing anymore, it's like, well, what are we doing instead? I guess we'll just try and like have fun and play with gimmicks and stuff. So I said, I'm thinking about, because we used to do like one Halloween episode of our show, and that's kind of all we did. And I was thinking about just dedicating the whole month of October to like horror and spooky themes. And she was like, oh, really? So she spearheaded that whole initiative. So every episode of Back Issues, 4 episodes this month, are all spooky books. And I brought back our other show, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, where we take 3 books, we all read them, and then we review them, and then we decide which one's the good, the bad, and the ugly in that show. Those are also all themed for spooky books. And so this week we're doing the spookiest Batman comic I've ever seen. And it might be, the tease is that it's Grant Morrison's first Batman story arc, as opposed to his first story, which I think is like in an annual somewhere in like the 70s. But this is like or 80s. But no, this is a Legends of the Dark Knight story arc that that's on people's like top 10, I think, top 20 at least, of Batman stories.
I loved Legends of the Dark Knight.
Wasn't it such a good series?
Unbelievable series. It's funny. I have, I haven't actually looked on DC Universe how many of the old Legends of the Dark Knight story arcs they've put up in their on their app.
You know how many they should have? All of them.
Yeah.
Because
oh my God, yeah.
89 they launched Legends of the Dark Knight, which who'd have thought, because it's such a brilliant scheme today. Like Legends of the Dark Knight should exist now, because Legends of the Dark Knight, ladies and gentlemen, was a series that just generated evergreen trade paperback stories for readers. Every 5 issues, a new story arc. Boom, boom, boom.
Self-contained.
Trade. Yep. What a good idea for today's market, where your primary sales come from trades. Like, you mean to tell, like, what do I really need to wait for Black Label to do some crazy thing, or wait for like some new hotness to do some crazy thing, when you could just have just solid creators, 5-issue arcs, boom, 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 and just don't worry about the rating.
And so many of the stories were done by and I can't remember even guys beyond Alan Grant,
like Peter Milligan.
Peter Milligan. And that's what I was going to say. A lot of great British writers that didn't normally do Batman. And I've said this to James Robinson and other British writers in particular, that when it comes to their perspective on American comics, they're always really interesting, because it is a foreign property. I mean, literally, Brian Hitch and I were talking about Batman's Grave the last time I talked to Hitchy.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing. It's interesting in the hands of a non-American, right, and how they perceive not only the character, but American culture as well. And I think you get a lot of really interesting stories.
Yeah, anybody writing Judge Dredd, I'd love to see them do their tackle on Batman, because it's like Judge Dredd from 2008. It's just, hey, look at this American fascist who's just like doing what he thinks, the law is all in his hands. Batman's a similar concept. I think Alan Grant wrote all those crossovers, by the way. Is that right?
of Batman
Dredd.
Oh yeah, I think you're right. I think it was Alan Grant that wrote it.
So I mean, I
which makes sense.
Yeah, I love that. By the way, he runs into Dredd. Two punches. Batman's down. Mask is off. He's under arrest. I'm like, gee whiz! I wonder who wrote this.
That's awesome. I also liked when I spoke, and I was just telling Dave Gibbons I got to get him back on.
Yeah,
a great British writer who really doesn't care about writing superheroes at all. Pat Mills.
Yeah.
And I love talking to Pat Mills, because I think he's an incredibly creative person. And talking to Dave last week reminded me again about the great history of 2000 AD. Not only Dredd, but so many other titles that were within 2000 AD. And two, have you watched that great documentary they made about the history of 2000 AD?
No, but I know it. It's on my watch later list. I think it's through Amazon or something, but it's. Yeah, I've
really great,
but it's on my list.
It's really, really great. Yeah,
that's awesome.
And and again, it reminds me of a million other British writers that I have yet to have on. Andy Diggle is a guy that I would love to talk to, and I love everything he does, whether it's 2000 AD or American comics. I think he's an incredible creator. James made fun of Batman during his Starman run with mocking how serious he was, but it was a great crossover. I agree, and James has written a lot of very good Batman stories as well.
Look at Garth Ennis's Hitman book. He did that too, but he still managed to make Batman like he didn't. That was a different Garth though back then.
Oh, this is interesting. Roboter's 100. Depending
Yeah,
on your outlook, I think Marvel and DC have been churning out some great hits. Not everything's going to work, but the majority, I argue, is good right now. I certainly think there's enough good books being done
totally.
by both companies. You know what my favorite DC writer is right now? Tom Taylor.
Tom Taylor has been crushing it in a way where it's like that dude has just been waiting for his opportunity. He's just been waiting for the door to open a crack for him to get the opportunity to write everything. Like he has a pitch for everyone and everything, and he is not disappointing. Like he's proven that his enthusiasm and his desire to do it is worth it. Like if I knew sports, I'd use an analogy from it to describe this guy, where it's like just waiting for an opportunity to get on bat and show everyone what he can do. But yeah, everything he's done has been like a home run so far.
And I love the direction he took Suicide Squad in.
Yeah.
And I mean, hey, here's 10 new characters. And it's like, I love all of these characters. That's incredible what he just did.
Totally.
And,
That's so rare too.
You know, and also Deceased is just, I mean, at this point, you know, and a sad coincidental timing, having a book about a pandemic that is literally killing the earth.
Uh-huh.
It's a great book. And it's like, you know, I mean, another thing like that too, Philip Kennedy Johnson and Marvel Zombies. I'm like, I don't care about zombies anymore. However, I've read both series and I'm like,
still good.
It's really good. I'm really enjoying this.
You know what's amazing? I hate like the cash cow. Like I hate where like they take something and they rug it into the ground. Deceased is one of those things. And I think it's just because Taylor's writing all of them. Every time there's a new Deceased, I'm like, this is great. This is great too. Unkillables is great. The At World's End's great. The Dead Planet's great. Like, oh my God.
Yeah. And again, you get these moments that won't happen in the regular books.
No.
And so you can have Superman's tearful goodbye to John before he sacrifices himself. Yeah, man. It's like, it's like, yeah, this is heavy. This is great.
Brilliant because it's not just like it, because anybody could imagine a story where Superman has to say goodbye to his family. But because Taylor's like, this isn't a Superman book, this is a DC book. He only has like 5 or 6 panels to play with before he has to move on to the next thing. So he knows how to manage the page real estate and give you the most bang for your buck and the most shock for your value dollar. And it's like, boom, boom, boom. Here's your thing. Here's everything I need to telegraph in the most conservative amount of space. And it still doesn't feel rushed and it feels earned. That's talent. And that's Tom Taylor.
I'm with you, man. No, I've known him for
like I don't even know him.
I was going to say, I've known him for 10 years. I met Tom because like Nicola Scott, they would go to San Diego.
Yeah.
And I've known Nicola for about 15 years. And she introduced me to Tom. And immediately I just liked the guy. And then I started reading his Star Wars stuff 10 years ago and all of his Marvel stuff. And now he's killing it at DC, and I'm just so happy for him. He's a sweetheart of a guy, and again, much like Nicola, it's like I miss those guys, and that's why I'm really glad I started doing video this year because I get to see my friends that I would normally only see at San Diego and stuff, and truly like them on the other side of the world. And it's like, oh, thank God, man, Jesus, I miss you guys, you know, really, like because also a lot of times from San Diego, I would take the first plane out like at 6 a.m. So Saturday or Sunday night, whenever I was leaving the next day, I would stay up and just hang out at the Hyatt. And they're on Australian time. So so for them, it's literally like the middle of the day. And they're just like, all right, it's 4 a.m. We're fine.
Right. And
I'm like, great. So we'd hang out. And that's the thing, man. We would literally like hang out outside and just like talk, the three of us and stuff, and have these great conversations. And I'm like, oh, this is really the perfect way to end the show was like hanging out with them and stuff. So yeah.
That is such a rare privilege because, like, you know, you go to I've had every fan experience thanks to going to the con starting 2006. Like, I've had the fan experience of waiting in the line that is obscenely long. I've had the experience of leaving the con and then going home. I've had the experience of like going to a party after the con and having no clout or experience with anybody else and just having a good experience, absorbing it all. Had the experience of being invited to a party, you know, knowing people, not wanting to go to the party, but rather having a genuine experience with the creator and then talking to them as we walk and then realizing we're friends now. Like, all those elements have been like part of this crescendo of a career that I've just been like so privileged and lucky to experience. And like, it's all because of cons, and I love them, and I will never get tired of them. Like, New York Comic-Con for me, 4-day experience. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I go every single day, and I don't try to drag everybody. I'm like, hey, listen, you guys can sleep and stay home. I'm just hyped. Like I'm awake from Wednesday night to Sunday, like just awake, doing and being and going. And
that's funny to hear, because I'll be honest, there are things about, and it's nobody's fault. It just is the way that it is.
Yeah.
But there are things about New York Comic-Con that drive me nuts.
Sure.
That I really am to the point where I don't go on Sunday. I hadn't been going on Sundays anymore. I stay with friends that, obviously live in the city.
Yeah.
So I pretty much, I'll take a Sunday night plane back and spend the day with them. Right. And just hang out and appreciate the city. And then I'll leave. And
I know a lot of
people
do that. Jason and Ashley do that. Like now, if they have to come out, like I know the last time they were there, they were like, "We're not going to the convention. We're going to the Statue of Liberty. Like we're going to a real deli." I'm like, "Good for you." Yes, because if you have to work, that sucks. Like this is for me. My work is just being like, "Hey, everybody, welcome to the show. I'm doing this thing," or I went to this thing, talking to this guy. So it's like, I'll just go have fun and then try and turn it into something if I can.
No, I'm with you. The only other thing that drives me nuts too about New York is, and I stopped doing. Do you do press junkets anymore?
I never really did. We were a press outlet. We get press credentials as a result. And what we'll do is we'll do interviews and we'll do stuff like that. But like we don't go to the back room. Like there's. I'm sure you have. Yeah, the back room where all the press guys go. We don't go there except to use the press lounge to sit the hell down.
Sure.
Like, that is literally it. We sit down because it's like what I've discovered in this funny job I have is that like if we shoot a show there, it looks and sounds worse than if I shoot the show here. So we'll go to use it as a convention to like network with professionals.
That's exactly what I do.
Things up for later. And then, just walk and then just enjoy the show and like, and get ideas. We get graphic ideas. We get like merchandise ideas. We work with different creators. And most importantly, we run into people who actually want to bump into us. And that's like the next level experience. But like, it's also one of those things where it's like, that's all I have to do. Great. I don't have to worry about like, I love going to the press room or it's not even a room, ladies and gentlemen. It's just a floor with chairs and tables. And so you just sit the hell down. And then I just take in all these people who are like 22, who are scrambling with their laptops and they're trying to write their scoops that no one's going to read. And I'm just like, that's a lot of work. It's a lot of work.
I know I'm exactly the same way as far as I stopped doing floor interviews about 10 years ago because everybody does floor interviews. I don't mind the ambiance of the mill and the din of noise. Because it is kind of audio verite, especially when I was only doing audio. I didn't mind it because it showed that I really am there or whatever. Totally. But what I didn't like was I felt, especially getting a press pass, that I'm already like getting a freebie that a lot of people who paid didn't get.
Yes.
And the last thing I want to do is spend time with a creator that could have been spent with somebody that paid for a ticket.
Totally.
And so I always do the same thing. I network. I always tell my friends who watch me, and every now and then I'll get someone to like take photos of when I'm talking to a creator just to have photos and things.
Definitely.
And it's like, I always say it's like I'm running for mayor.
Right.
Because I really am just like checking in with people and like, all right, don't forget about me in November, that kind of thing. And for real, and then meeting new creators for the first time. Yes. So that's great. But also, like I said, seeing my friends, my creator friends, and my other comic book fan friends as well.
Yeah.
So, that's I will find myself in conversation with a friend at their table and suddenly look behind me and see 3 people waiting with comics to sign. And literally I jump out of my skin and I'm like, Jesus, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
I'm like, please, we're just bullshitting. Please talk to him.
Yeah.
Yes, you've been waiting to talk to Tom King.
I
talk to Tom King all the time.
Right. That experience that you have that I've had where you walk the floor, you talk to creators, you pace nervously before you bother them and ask them like, hey, do you mind if we do a quick interview, 5 minutes or less? Like I did that when we first started going because I was like, well, this is what we have to do. We have to prove that we've been to the show, which is another thing you have to kind of prove is that you've been to the show and that you're going to promote the show. That's why they're giving you a free ticket. But like I noticed like after year 3 of doing that, Like nobody watches those, and it's so crap. Like and I don't rewatch them, and they're so crappy. And what I love now is when I go to a show and I don't have to carry all this heavy crap, and then I'll pass like a person who's 10 years younger than me, who's got the whole thing and he's doing it. And I'm like, listen, like, and I see what they're doing wrong. I'm looking at all the things that I screwed up, that I didn't know what to do. And so every once in a while, like if I really bump into it and they're setting it up, I go, listen, you're going to want to shoot some B-roll because you're going to fuck up the line and you're going to want to have to like dub over it. So, shoot a little bit of the table, shoot this, and that, the other thing. You're going to be glad you got the B-roll. Like just stuff like that where I'm like, I don't know if they know or appreciate that, like, that is something that took me 2 cons to learn, but like, trust me, audio is more important than video. Trust me. Like, you shoot on your phone if you need to, but use the audio, like make sure that's good. Like it's just, but I know, and by the way, every time I've given any advice, it's met with nothing but disdain and completely, and a certainty that they have got it covered.
Yeah, they don't want to hear what we.
And I'm like, okay, that's fair. And I never see them again. I never see that video. And I'll look for it too. I'm like, okay, who are you? What was your thing? And never see the video. And I'm like, yeah, because it sounded bad, it looked bad, but like it's so important to do. And it's like, I don't want to discourage anybody from doing it, but I do want you to know, like, no one's gonna watch it. And it's
hilarious.
But it's so
important. Well, it's interesting though, and I guess when it was more scarce in previous decades, those are the things that I look for from the 80s and 90s and even earlier on YouTube. And I'm so glad people have those things. I mean, that is the other reason why I do interviews, is it's great to get a creator at the moment.
Yes.
Talking about what they're doing and what they're thinking right now. Right. And that's something that is missing from a lot of, I mean, they do it to a degree, some of the current news blogs. Good Lord, when Newsarama got bought by Games Radar, they wiped out their library.
I can't believe
that. And that depressed the hell out of me.
Yeah.
And it's really sad. And I hope that what I hear is true from people like Chris, that some people at least did keep their stuff.
Yeah.
Because it's a shame. And that is unfortunately the disposability of some online stuff. Maybe with the Internet Archive, you can call that stuff, or the Wayback Machine, maybe.
Anything maybe text-wise, absolutely, but video or audio, it's tough because it's a file, it's like
So I guess so with text and everything.
Yeah, it's can you imagine? I thought about this like when I was doing an interview with somebody that I was like, man, I can't believe I'm talking to this person that I first learned about like 20 years ago. Imagine having the perspective and the technology at your disposal, like to do a radio show in the 90s, like 92.
I was doing that. Go on.
But to imagine trying to do it like as an armchair, I got piss and vinegar, I'm ready to do it. You're like convincing your radio people to let you do that kind of thing, or to do like your pirate radio thing. Like there's so few of those that, like, wouldn't it have been amazing? Because I grew up, my parents are from New York. So like my grandma, who's like 100, who lived to be like 98. She lived in Brooklyn, and she went to a Comic-Con before me because she was like, oh, my, there's a convention. My church is doing a thing.
Wow.
And clearly, like, it was the show. It was like the New York Comic-Con. She took a subway to get there, but in 1991.
Sure.
Can you imagine having like your cell phone and being like, oh, hey, Jack, like just talk to anybody who would have been on hand, like standing in a line of 11 people maybe, and getting that kind of access and that kind of insight. It just, what a missed opportunity.
Well, that's why the Comics Journal, and I'm assuming that the people behind the Comics Journal hung on to these audio files.
Yeah.
But they had like chalk talks of like Gil Kane when he was still alive in the 90s. And I can't remember some of the other great old creators. Or the other great thing is, and I always point this out, Comic Book Artists released this great documentary about Will Eisner. And among the bonus features, they have all of Will Eisner's audio interviews, the shop talk stuff he did that became a Dark Horse book, and were also articles in the Spirit Quarterly or whatever it was called when Dark Horse took over publishing, reprinting the Spirit stories.
Cool.
But yeah, and it's great to hear. And literally, it's Will Eisner with his cassette interviewing Jack Kirby and I right now Milton Caniff of Terry and the Pirates and all.
Yeah.
And just like about a dozen interviews. And as Bendis pointed out, yeah, of course Will Eisner invented the podcast. Of course he did. And it's kind of true, man. It's kind of true. So it's great. True. And really Danny Figueroff and I have talked about that there really should be like a nonprofit
like
archive. Yes, thank you. That this stuff stays. And yeah, man, I got my 15 years of Word Balloon and I'm happy to share it with, that kind of initiative.
Totally.
Yeah. And I always say, like, if someone wants to use a piece of my audio, all I ask is that you give me proper credit for it. That's all.
Yeah.
And then direct people to wordballoon.com and this channel and things to hear and see more stuff. I was kind of mad. Actually, a couple of the comic web blogs took a piece of what I was talking about with Jerry Conway.
Yeah.
About what he would do, how he would change comics. And a couple of them, they took his whole Twitter feed, and it's like, yeah, that's actually all stuff, as he said in his first post, that started on this Word Balloon conversation we had a month or two ago. And yeah, they left that part off. And it's like, yeah, that's not cool. Thanks, guys. Thanks a lot.
Just give the credit. Well, you're already getting the credit.
I don't blame the owners of the website. It goes back to the people that work for them that are doing this to get their first credits and don't understand that maybe it's good to cite your source.
Absolutely. It doesn't take much effort, and it's like it's invaluable. Everybody wants to know where it came from.
Yeah. Oh, well, what are you going to do?
But did you know that Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire are definitely going to be in the next Spider-Man movie? Because that's absolutely definitely going to
I know. I saw that too. Idiots. I know. Yeah. What are you going to do?
Let me direct you to a Simpsons episode called Radioactive Man, ladies and gentlemen. They predicted that too.
That's fantastic. Dude, we could wrap up. Come back. Right. Come back and we'll talk more. Honestly, no, I appreciate you doing this, Sal.
My pleasure, man. Anything. I saw you have a Star Trek show. I was like, ooh, I could complain about Star Trek for an hour.
That's like Rodney Barnes, another one of our guests that is the creator of the Philadelphia comic. He's an incredibly accomplished television writer. I'll be talking to him on Word Balloon Live this Wednesday night, and we discovered we both are huge boxing fans, and he's like, oh man, and he starts telling me about the fights he was at, and I'm like, oh, Rodney, you just opened the door. I'm like, you're in trouble, man. Yeah, exactly. I'm like, believe me, we're going to talk about your comic and television and boxing when we talk on Wednesday. Awesome. He's like, oh, that'll be great. So I'm like, okay, cool. So yeah, man, no, come on and we'll talk. Are you watching new Star Trek right now?
Oh no.
Ha! Just doesn't want to pay for it, or do you dislike what they did so far?
I saw the first episode of Picard and was like, then read about it and was like, no. My friend who brought me into Star Trek was like, no, the show is about him re-becoming Picard. I'm like, yeah, I don't care. He was sure he was Picard in his 50s. I don't need him rediscovering it in his 80s. And I saw Lower Decks, which I am just not young enough to watch.
I don't know, Sal, because I'm 55, but I think I enjoy good recent new comedy.
No, it's true. Just I watched the pilot because I have I'm cheap and I have this thing called Pluto TV, which is basically just free TV, and there's a Star Trek TNG channel now.
Yes, I love Pluto. Pluto's fantastic. Yes.
But I guess Paramount / CBS All Access worked out a channel with Pluto so they could just promote the shows, which is how I saw Discovery, Picard, and Lower Decks as pilots, because they would cram them in between shows I wanted to watch.
Yes.
So it's like, Lower Decks! Tiffany, sit down. We're going to watch Lower Decks. Watched it 2 minutes in. I'm like, this is reprehensible. And then I watched the whole thing, and I'm like, I hate this.
Yeah.
But I can't just say I hate this, because it's like, that's not fair. You got to watch, because in the age of streaming, you can't just say I hate this if I've seen a show. You have to watch both seasons and then read or hear the podcast. No, I get it. I know what the tone is. I've seen enough. I've written enough. I've read enough. I know when I can be like, that's going in that direction. I'm out. And Lower Decks just like they talk too fast. It relies on fast talking and loud yelling, and like, and I know I sound like
Sal, you're right. You are reading my
on Star Trek.
No, you're reading my. I literally said exactly the same things, and it's not that we're old men. No, I'm sorry. That covers up not funny.
Right. It's just
all
trying to be funny, and it's like
without any actual jokes or humor.
No.
Hey, am I right? Hey, I'm cool. Am I right? I'm really fast right now.
Like
it's like fuck you. That's not. That's the delivery mechanism of potentially something funny, but there's no funny there.
No.
Or all that is there are, as South Park has called them, member berries.
Right.
Boy, I'll tell you, that reminds me of Captain Picard Day. Oh, I know that.
Oh, I like that. Can you please just show me some of that? Never.
No. Okay. Well, or I always give it like if Seinfeld were to do stand-up and be like, hey, you know, when we used to have pop top cans and they used to have the ring on them and they would come off on your hand and we would all as the audience go, yes.
Yes, that was
thing. And then it's like, all right, so the other day I bought a house for the first time. And it's like, what happened to the pop top cans?
You're waiting for the joke.
Yeah, exactly. That's not the, I just told you about it. Yeah, that's not a joke. Yeah. That's an observation, and we're Pavlov's dogs, and we all responded to the bell ringing. Like, yeah, we do remember that. But where's the fucking joke?
Yeah.
None.
It's just
no joke.
Yeah, it's weaponized cynicism using it's cynicism weaponizing nostalgia, where they're just like, I hate this thing, but you know who likes it? These idiots over there, these idiot nerds. So what I'll do is I'll create this thing that'll get all their money. And it's just like, no one's having fun making any of these things. Like clearly no one's having any joy making these things. And it's like, I feel bad because like, I think that getting to Picard, the show's over, but like Patrick Stewart, accomplished actor. He's brilliant. He's incredible in everything. I love his Picard. Don't ask him what he wants to do. Just give him the script and let him do the thing.
Sal, that's why I talk to writers as opposed to actors. And it's one of the reasons why I stopped doing the press junkets, because I always say writers are the keepers of character.
Yes.
If you want to know what motivates Buffy, talk to Joss Whedon. Don't talk to I mean, and really in fairness, and that's another point that I think a lot of smart writers have told me of television and film, that if it is a recurring character and they've done it for 7 years, and even in the case of Patrick Stewart, that likely he does have opinions about what Picard thinks, and I'm sure it has already filtered itself within the TV shows and the films.
Totally,
and that's fine. But again, I get more out of talking to a writer, and saying, tell me about Superman, tell me about like I said, Picard or any Star Trek character. So
same here. That's exactly right. I mean, I have a great respect for artists, but I feel because I am not trained in art, and I'm not the art guy. I know what I like, but that's not enough. So I feel bad whenever we have like an artist on, because I'm always just like, man, remember that time you drew Spawn? That was awesome. Like, it's just, that's not enough. Like, it has to be, I can talk about character or motivation or story structure till the cows come home. And those guys love to talk about that. But like artists, actors, that kind of thing, I'm like, it's going to be really hard for me to find something interesting to talk about.
No, it took me a long time to get comfortable talking to artists, but now I feel like I can, and not screw it up, and not have a limited amount of what I could talk about.
Totally,
So I'm with you, man. Well, look, I'm gonna go because I already got a call, and I'm gonna but we've done a nice 2 hours here, Sal, and truly appreciate it. And please come back.
I will, and you too, man. Come on my show. I'll be happy.
It'd be a pleasure. Truly, I will absolutely take you up on that, and it would be great. Everybody asked great questions today. Thank you very much for doing that. And thank you for all of you Comic Pop people coming over and watching Sal here on Word Balloon. I hope you like what you got here. I hope you go through the archive and check out some of the interviews that I've done. And please like the broadcast and subscribe to Word Balloon as well. I'm brand new to video, only about 8 months, but audio I've been doing for 15 years. And that's why I get so many great guests on Word Balloon. Join us on Baltimore Comic-Con. Sal and I will be hosting the Ringo Red Carpet period, and the place to watch it is BaltimoreComicConLive.com, or to get more information about the convention. But it also will be running on the Comic Pop channel and here on the Word Balloon channel as well. And it all starts on Thursday with a great comic auction hosted by Rob the Legend. It's going to be hilarious. And that starts on Thursday. And then Friday evening through late Sunday night. I mean, we have panels that start at 11 p.m. Eastern.
Yeah.
To make sure we're taking care of the West Coast as well. But it's going to be great. We're really, really excited to bring you some incredible programming for Baltimore Comic-Con. So thank you, Sal, for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, everybody, for watching. And as I always end every episode with,